Chapter 262. Oh my god, it's Yin Jinqing's authentic work. It's just Yin Jinqing's calligraphy. I'm not sure if it's authentic. The neon woman said it might be fake. If it's Yin Jinqing's authentic work, how much would it cost? At least tens of millions. Yin Jinqing was no stranger to the people of Huaxia. Many people who had come to watch the competition today were lovers of calligraphy and painting. For a moment, there was a lot of discussion under the stage. However, people soon found the problem. The two paintings were exactly the same. If they looked closely, the handwriting on the left was lighter than the one on the right. There was no other difference. Dude, which one is real? I don't know. We need Director Gua to identify which one is real and which one is fake. I think they might both be fake. It's not easy to find Yin Jinqing's calligraphy. Maybe someone in Sanlitun made it. On the stage, Chiba Mieko smiled at Guofeng and said, Mr. Gua, please appraise it. Which one is real? Which one is fake? Guofeng nodded, took out a pair of white gloves and put them on. Then, he took out a magnifying glass and began to identify them carefully. At first he was very calm. He thought that with his years of experience and skills in the antique industry, he would be able to distinguish the authenticity of the two works. However, as time went by, his expression became more and more serious. Later, there was a faint sweat on his forehead. Guofeng looked at the two works more than a dozen times, but no matter how he looked at them, they were real. He couldn't find any flaws. But that was impossible. Even if Yin Jinqing had written two such exhortations, they couldn't be exactly the same. The font size was exactly the same. It was as if they had been printed by a photocopier. One of them must have been fabricated. Chiba Mieko stood aside and sneered. Mr. Gua, how long do you need to give me the result? Do you want me to make you a cup of tea? Her words seemed to be polite, but they were full of sarcasm. Don't worry, I'll give you the answer now. While speaking, Qin Haodong walked onto the stage. According to the rules, the Huaxia side could also send 3 people to appraise antiques, as long as they could give the same result in the end. Seeing Qin Haodong appear again, Chiba Mieko's expression changed slightly. Not only had she suffered a loss at the hands of this young man last night, but Yagyu Ai had also been defeated by him at the tea ceremony. Could it be that he had studied antique appraisal? Chiba Mieko shook her head secretly. Impossible. This is impossible. Generally speaking, it took time to reach the peak of each industry. It was impossible for a person to be proficient in all kinds of industries, unless he was an immortal. Seeing Qin Haodong on the stage, Guofeng finally breathed a sigh of relief. He really could not do anything about these 2 pieces of calligraphy. At the same time, he was secretly glad that he had the foresight to invite Qin Haodong here. Otherwise, if the Huaxia people could not identify the authenticity of his calligraphy, it would be really shameful. He said, Brother Qin, can you tell me which one is real and which one is fake? Qin Haodong smiled slightly and said, Director Gua, in fact, these 2 pieces of calligraphy are very simple, but you've been deceived by them. As the old saying goes, you've been led into a ditch by them. Chiba Mieko frowned and said, What do you mean, Mr. Qin? How did I deceive you? Qin Haodong said, In fact, it's very simple. These 2 pieces of calligraphy are original. You have to let Director Gua choose which one is fake. Aren't you forcing him to do something? What? These 2 pieces of calligraphy are real? How is that possible? Is this young man talking nonsense? How could they both be real? The 2 pieces of calligraphy are exactly the same. No wonder. This young man is so accomplished in the tea ceremony at such a young age. It's normal that he doesn't know antiques. After all, no one is perfect. After hearing Qin Haodong's words, the audience immediately became restless. Chiba Mieko's expression changed slightly, but she quickly calmed down and said, Antique appraisal depends on eyesight and experience. Don't talk nonsense. Are you better than Mr. Gua? She wanted to provoke a conflict between Qin Haodong and Guofeng. In her opinion, Guofeng was the president of the Antique Association, the director of the Antique Appraisal Center, and a veteran figure in the antique industry. He would not casually listen to Qin Haodong's opinion. Unexpectedly, as soon as she finished speaking, Guofeng said firmly, I believe Brother Qin. Since he said both pieces are real, then they are both real. That's the result of our appraisal. Chiba Mieko said. Are you sure? You know, there is only one result. Once it is determined, it can't be changed. I'm sure. Guofeng's tone was very firm. Then he turned to look at Qian Duoduo and said, We have given the final result of the appraisal. Let's reveal the answer. Since Guofeng was sure, Qian Duoduo no longer hesitated. He opened the box in his hand and took out a white card from it. It was written that both pieces of calligraphy were authentic. The content of the card was revealed on the big screen, and the venue suddenly boiled over. Oh my God! These two pieces of calligraphy are authentic works of Yinjinxing. How is that possible? The Japanese are so cunning. They actually took out two authentic works for appraisal. Fortunately, the young man has good eyesight. Otherwise, he would have been cheated by them. Obviously, the Huaxia side had won the first round of appraisal. Guofeng was full of joy, but he was still dizzy. He asked Qin Haodong, What the hell is going on? How can two pieces of calligraphy be exactly the same and both be authentic? Qin Haodong said, Director Guo, you're confused. Did you forget the story of Huaxia's power penetrating the paper? As soon as he said that, Guofeng immediately came to a realization. It turned out that when ancient calligraphers waved their brushes and splashed ink, their poems were vigorous and powerful. They could often penetrate the xian paper under the brush and reach the next layer. It was said that a master could cover 3 layers of xian paper. This could explain why two works of calligraphy were exactly the same and were both authentic. In fact, if he had calmed down and thought about it, he could have figured out the mystery. Unfortunately, he was in a competition, and his nerves had been tense. In addition, Chiba Mieko had misled him at the beginning. Subconsciously, he felt that one of them must be fake. Qin Haodong said to Chiba Mieko, Miss Chiba, did you prepare these 2 collections? It's a good plan, but it's a pity that it will fail. It turned out that Chiba Mieko was proficient in Huaxia culture and knew that the story of Yinjinxing, the great calligrapher, was about the story of Yinjinxing. Therefore, she had done everything possible to get 2 authentic works of Yinjinxing for appraisal. She could kill 2 birds with 1 stone. On the one hand, she could mislead the Huaxia appraisal experts. On the other hand, if the Huaxia side gave a wrong appraisal result, it would be a joke. Imagine how shameful it would be for a nation to be defeated by its own classic. The plan was beautiful, but unfortunately, she had met Qin Haodong. Nothing could hide from his powerful spirit. Chiba Mieko snorted and said, Don't be too proud. This is only the first collection. After saying that, she waved to the audience. 2 neon people came up and put away the 2 works. At the same time, they carried 2 wooden boxes up. Everyone's eyes were attracted to these 2 wooden boxes. They didn't know what was inside, but they seemed to be very heavy. Chiba Mieko opened one of the wooden boxes and took something out. Suddenly there was an uproar. It was a bronze animal head, the sheep head of the 12 zodiac animals. Qin Haodong was shocked at first, but then he was overjoyed. He had not expected to see the bronze head of the 12 zodiac animals again so soon. He could even feel the seal formation on the bronze head. He secretly decided that he had to get this bronze head, or at least get the upper-level spirit stone inside. Now only the upper-level spirit stone could help him break through quickly. The audience also became restless. The 12 zodiac animal heads had an extraordinary meaning for the Huaxia people. Now, 8 of them had returned to Huaxia, and the other 4 were missing. The sheep head was among them. No one had expected that it would be in the hands of the Yagyu family in Neon. Chiba Mieko held the bronze head in her hands and smiled at the audience. She said, I know that the thing in my hands means a lot to Huaxia. Today I'll give you a chance. Let's see if you can take it back. As she said that, she opened another wooden box and took out another identical sheep head. Then she continued. This bronze head came from the summer palace in Huaxia. It was lost to the Yagyu family a long time ago. In order to prove that the casting technology of Neon is not inferior to that of Huaxia, the Yagyu family hired a skilled craftsman to make another imitation. In our opinion, this imitation is exactly the same as the one from Huaxia. There is no difference. Today I brought both. As long as the experts in Huaxia can choose the real one, we will immediately give it to Huaxia. If the experts in Huaxia can't tell which one is real and which one is fake, then there is nothing we can do but keep it in neon. At the same time, it will prove that our casting technology is not inferior to that of Huaxia. Qin Haodong thought to himself, it seems that Neon has been preparing for this cultural exchange for a long time. Every move they made was a trap. If they were not careful, Huaxia would lose face. It was a pity that the Neon people had not expected that he, the reborn immortal emperor, would be involved. The two sheep heads looked the same to others, but he could tell at a glance that one of them was running the sealing formation of the Yuan sect. It was obvious which one was real and which one was fake. Guofeng's face suddenly became serious. He was very clear about the significance of the 12 zodiac animals to Huaxia. If he missed the opportunity to take back the sheep head, he would not be able to forgive himself, not to mention the public opinion. After Chiba Mieko finished speaking, she put the two sheep heads on the table and said to Guofeng and Qin Haodong, "You two can start the appraisal. Don't miss this precious opportunity. Otherwise, as the old Huaxia saying goes, you will not be able to face your elders again." "Don't worry, we won't take the wrong thing," Qin Haodong said to Guofeng. "Director Gua, let me have a look first. If I'm not sure, then you can take action." Guofeng knew that Qin Haodong was saving face for him. He said, "Brother Qin, you must take back the treasure of Huaxia. Don't worry, I won't let you down." Qin Haodong walked in front of the two sheep heads. In order to distinguish them, he had pasted a number on them. The one with the magic formation was pasted with number 1, and the fake one was pasted with number 2. Everyone's eyes were focused on Qin Haodong, expecting him to bring back the treasure of Huaxia. Qin Haodong held the two sheep heads in his hands and looked at them. In fact, it was all for show. Then he put the sheep head number 1 back into the wooden box. Everyone was stunned, including Chiba Mieko. She did not understand how he was appraising it. Of course, he was not doing this to appraise it, but to deceive people. The moment the sheep head was put into the wooden box, he unlocked the sealing formation of the Yuan sect. Then he used his divine mind to put the upper-level spirit stone into the storage ring. Then he resealed it. Chapter 263. Everything was done smoothly. The whole process only took a second or two. When the animal head was taken out again, it looked the same as before. No one knew that the spirit stone had been taken away. Qin Haodong was relieved. The spirit stone finally belonged to him. He had not expected to receive such a gift at a cultural exchange meeting. He held the number 1 bronze head and said to Chiba Mieko, "I've identified it. This is the real one." "Qin-kun, are you sure? Don't you want to take a closer look?" Chiba Mieko's heart was in turmoil. She naturally knew which sheep head was the real one, but she did not understand how Qin Haodong had done it. He had casually put it in a wooden box and then taken it out. What kind of unique identification method was that? "There's no need to look anymore. I'm sure it's the one." Qin Haodong turned to Guofeng and said, "Director Gua, is this okay?" Guofeng now had complete trust in Qin Haodong. He nodded and said, "Brother Qin, what do you think? Let's choose this one. If we make a wrong choice, I'll take responsibility." There was complete silence below the stage. There were nearly 1,000 people in the venue, but not a single sound could be heard. They were all looking at the stage nervously. Some even held their breath. Everyone knew the importance of this choice. If they made the right choice, they could bring the national treasure back to their country. If they made the wrong choice, they would become a joke all over the world. Seeing the determination in Qin Haodong and Guofeng's eyes, Chiba Mieko felt bitter. Before bringing the sheep head to the Celestial Empire, the Yaguas had had a fierce debate. The opposing side believed that the sheep head had been in neon for a century, and its market value had exceeded 200 million yuan. It was not worth it to use it as a bet. The opposing side believed that the sheep head was particularly important to the Celestial Empire. If they used it to attack the Celestial Empire's appraisal experts, the influence would be unprecedented. Once they succeeded, the Celestial Empire would lose face in front of the world. Therefore, it was worth the risk. The most important thing was that the fake sheep head was no different from the real one. They had even invited many antique experts to identify it, but no one could tell it apart. If the Yaguas hadn't numbered it in advance, they wouldn't have been able to tell which one was the real one. Under such circumstances, there was only a 50% chance that the Chinese would be able to retrieve the genuine goat's head. It was completely worth the risk. The debate between the two sides was very fierce. In the end, Chiba Mieko stood firmly on the side of agreement, which made the master of the Yagyu family agree to bring the sheep head to the Celestial Empire. But now, Qin Haodong had easily taken away the genuine sheep's head. Another conspiracy of the Yagyu family had come to nothing. In the Celestial Empire's language, it was like trying to steal a chicken, but failing to succeed. Even if Chiba Mieko had a special identity, she would be condemned by all parties after returning home. While she was in a daze, Qian Duoduo did not hesitate and excitedly opened the box in his hand. In his opinion, as long as Qin Haodong was certain about something, he would not be wrong. This number 1 sheep head was definitely the authentic one that had been lost in Huaxia. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the box was opened. Inside was a small white card, on which was written number 1 is genuine. Seeing the image displayed on the big screen, the venue was silent at first. After a few seconds of silence, it suddenly erupted like a tsunami. Hooray, our national treasure is finally back. Dr. Qin is so awesome. Long live Dr. Qin. Dr. Qin, you're our hero. We love you. Dr. Qin, I want to marry you. I want to give birth to many children for you. Guofeng reached out and stroked the bronze head. He was so excited that his eyes were full of tears. Below the stage, even Gao Fengwen, Tang Qingji, and the other old men were jumping with excitement. Although Lang Sanyuan disliked Qin Haodong very much, as a Celestial Empire man, he still cheered with excitement. In the entire venue, except for the neon people, who looked gloomy, Qin Haodong was the calmest one. This kind of choice was not difficult for him. Compared to the bronze head, he valued the upper-level spirit stone more. At this time, it was already in his pocket. Chiba Mieko took a deep breath and adjusted her depressed mood. Then she asked, Qin-kun, can you tell me how you identified it? Qin Haodong looked at her with a smile and said jokingly, it's very simple. I don't like it. No one had expected him to give such an answer. At first, the audience burst into laughter, and then they shouted together, we don't like it either. Of course, Chiba Mieko did not believe this answer. However, a hero was judged by success or failure. No matter what, he had guessed correctly. At the end of this round of identification, the sheep head had become a Celestial Empire item, according to the previous agreement. Gao Fengwen had sent someone to take it away. This time, Neon had prepared a total of 3 collections. According to the best of 3, they had lost. However, for the sake of face, they still had to take out the last collection. Since the beginning of the competition, Neon had been defeated again and again. They were looking forward to winning one round, at least to save face. Chiba Mieko waved her hand at the audience. 2 more neon people brought up 2 cardboard boxes. The audience looked up excitedly. The wooden box had contained the bronze head of the 12 zodiac animals. They wondered what the neon people had brought up this time. Chiba Mieko opened the box and carefully took out 2 things. They were 2 gorgeous women's tricolor figurines. Tang Sankai. It's Tang Sankai. Someone under the stage had already shouted. The 2 women's tricolor figurines were about 30 centimeters tall and had different faces. One seemed to be dancing, while the other was standing there with a leisurely and elegant expression. The figures were very plump, fully demonstrating the aesthetic view of the Tang dynasty, that fat was beautiful. The 2 women's clothes were very bold. They had very low necklines, which were no weaker than modern low-cut dresses. They looked very sexy and beautiful. Chiba Mieko said to Guofeng and Qin Haodong, I don't need to say more. I think you 2 know that this is the famous Tang Sankai in Celestial Empire. Please identify which one is real, and which one is fake. I'll do it. Guofeng had always studied ancient Celestial Empire porcelain. He took out a magnifying glass, walked over, and began to carefully observe the two women's tricolor figurines. Qin Haodong did not speak. He watched quietly. In fact, he had already sensed that the two tricolor figurines had no spiritual qi at all. They were completely fake. It seemed that the Japanese had really put a lot of effort into this cultural exchange. First, they had made two authentic works of Yenjinqing. Then they had made two bronze heads of the 12 zodiac animals, one real and one fake. Now they had brought out two fake Tang Sankai for the Celestial Empire to guess. It had to be said that their strategy was very good. It was a pity that they had met Qin Haodong. Although he did not study much about ancient Celestial Empire culture, it was easy for him to distinguish the authenticity of the antiques. Guofeng looked at them for a long time. Finally, he turned around and called Qin Haodong, saying, "Brother Qin, I'm not sure." He pointed to one of the women's tricolor figurines and said, "This work is not only colorful, but the glaze is bright and the shape is very delicate. According to the traditional appraisal method of Tang Sankai, there is no problem with the opening on it." The opening Guofeng was talking about was the crack caused by the difference between the glaze and the glaze. After the Tang Sankai was unearthed, this kind of opening would generally become a prominent feature to identify the authenticity. Qin Haodong said, "Can't you see the problem?" He had to admit that the two fakes were so good that they could be mistaken for the real ones. He could not see the problem at all unless he used his spirit to sense the spiritual qi. However, he could not use this kind of thing as evidence, so he hoped that Guofeng could find the problem, which would save him a lot of trouble. Guofeng thought for a moment and said, "The problem is that they are too perfect. Even the tricolor figurines in the Celestial Empire Museum are not as perfect as these two." Chiba Mieko said, "Mr. Gua, although I don't know much about antique appraisal, I don't think that being too perfect can be a standard to identify the authenticity, right?" No one said that the tricolor figurines in the Celestial Empire Museum are the best. Maybe the one we have is better than the one you have. Guofeng was silent. This was exactly the reason why he couldn't figure it out. If these two female tricolored figurines were fakes, why couldn't he find any problem with them? If they were real, it didn't feel right. These two figurines were too perfect to be believed. Chiba Mieko sneered and said, "What do you think? When can you give me the result of the appraisal?" "I can give it to you now," Qin Haodong said. "These two things are both fakes." "They are both fakes." Guofeng shook his head. He could not believe that such good things were fakes. However, he believed Qin Haodong's words. He turned to Chiba Mieko and said, "Did you hear that? We have concluded that these two are fakes." Chiba Mieko smiled and said, "Since you are so sure, let's reveal the answer." Then she nodded to Qian Duoduo. Qian Duoduo opened the lid of the box in his hand and took out another piece of paper. When everyone's eyes focused on the piece of paper, they found that the first tricolor figurine was the real one, and the second tricolor figurine was the fake one. The audience was stunned. This time Qin Haodong and Guofeng had guessed wrong. However, no one cared too much about the result. After all, they had already won 2 rounds. According to the best of 3 rules, Huaxia had already won. An imperceptible smile appeared on Chiba Mieko's face. Although she had lost in the treasure appraisal round, she had not lost too badly. She had finally won a round in front of Qin Haodong, the monster. Just as she was about to ask someone to put away the 2 tricolor figurines, Qin Haodong said, "Wait a minute." Chiba Mieko asked in surprise, "Mr. Qin, do you have any other questions?" "I don't think the answer you gave is right. These 2 tricolor figurines are fakes." As soon as he said that, the audience became restless again. No one had thought of questioning the answer given by the neon people. After all, the first 2 rounds had been very fair. Could it be that the neon people had cheated and written the fakes as the real ones? Given the neon people's cunning character, they might have really done that. Chiba Mieko's expression changed as she said, "Mr. Qin, I admire your attainments in the tea ceremony and antiques, but you have to have a basis for your words. If you doubt our conclusion, please point out the problem with the first tricolor figurine." Qin Haodong did not answer her. Instead, he turned to look at Guofeng and asked, "Director Gua, if antiques like these are fakes, can they be fakes?" "I'm not sure," Generally speaking, it's very difficult to fake them. Although Guofeng was an expert in ancient literature, he was not very good at counterfeiting antiques. Even if some things were sometimes identified as fakes, they could not be smashed. Chapter 264. Everyone was shocked. What was this young man doing? Was he crazy? How could he break other people's things? Chiba Mieko was shocked at first. Then she said angrily, "What are you going to do? Why did you break our things? Do you know how much this tricolor figurine is worth? It's worth at least 30 million yuan. Guofeng was also shocked. At Lin Xiaoyan's birthday party, Qin Haodong had first broken Lin Pingchao's jade Buddha statue. And then he had destroyed Wu Daozi's lotus painting. He had not expected to repeat the same thing today. He had broken the Japanese-made Tang Sankai in public, the one that had been recognized as authentic. Qin Haodong didn't think so. This thing was obviously fake, but it had to be fake in front of him. He had to find its loopholes. He ignored Chiba Mieko and squatted down to find some evidence in the pile of debris. Unexpectedly, he saw a small note made of A4 paper. He picked up the paper and saw 3 big words on the front. "You win." He turned the note over and saw a few lines of small words on it. "You're right. This Tang Sankai is fake. I'm proud that my skills are unparalleled in the world. No one can identify a fake made by me. Since you can see it, I can only say that you win." There was also a signature under the note, which said Ghost Hand. It was said that there was an unspoken rule in the antique counterfeiting industry. In order to show respect for the ancestors, no matter how real they were, they had to leave a loophole. This Ghost Hand was also a wonderful person. He had left a loophole in the Tang Sankai fake. No wonder Guofeng had been looking for it with a magnifying glass for a long time, but had not found a loophole. Only someone like Qin Haodong would knock open such a treasure that was worth tens of millions of yuan. However, this had saved him a lot of trouble. He had originally wanted to find a loophole in the porcelain fragments, but now it seemed that it was completely unnecessary. The others also saw Qin Haodong find a note in the porcelain fragments, but they did not understand what it was. He stood up and handed the note to Chiba Mieko. He sneered and said, "The evidence is irrefutable. What else do you want to deny?" Chiba Mieko took it and looked at it. She said with a straight face, "This doesn't mean anything. Maybe it belongs to the people of the Tang dynasty. If it's a product made by a folk imitating the official kiln, it's still a genuine Tang Sankai." Qin Haodong sneered. "Miss Mieko, I don't know how much you know about Huaxia. Did A4 paper appear in the Tang dynasty? Could it be that the people of the Tang dynasty knew how to use simplified characters? Did the people of the Tang dynasty call fake goods fake?" The audience below the stage roared with laughter and shouted one after another, "A fake is a fake, don't deny it. Do you have any common sense? The simplified Chinese characters have only been around for a few decades. How dare you say that it's from the Tang dynasty? A loss is a loss, don't try to deny it." This. Chiba Mieko was speechless. She was not good at antiques. The collection had been provided by the Yagyu family, and the answers had been given by them. Yagyu Hirai's face was livid. He had just seen that Qin Haodong's attainments in antiques were unparalleled. Qin Haodong had guessed correctly twice in a row, so he had played a trick and asked his men to change the answers of the 2 Tang Sankai. He had thought that he would be able to win the game and save some face for Neon. He had not expected that he would not be able to get away with it and would be pointed out by Qin Haodong on the spot. Qin Haodong continued, "Miss Chiba Mieko, don't blame yourself too much. It's not your fault. It's just that Neon can't compare with Huaxia in terms of casting technology or making fake goods. The difference is too big." Chiba Mieko's cheeks were red. After 3 games, the Neon Nation had completely lost. "We admit defeat." After saying that, she hurried off the stage with a livid face. She didn't even want the fake Tang Sankai anymore. "Huaxia is mighty. Dr. Qin is mighty. Long live Huaxia. Huaxia will win. Mr. Qin, you're so awesome. I want to have a baby with you too." The audience was very excited, but Qin Haodong was also a little speechless. That bearded man was shouting that he wanted to have a baby with him. What the hell was that? After Chiba Mieko stepped off the stage, Yagyu Hirai comforted her. Miss Mieko, don't think too much. There are still 3 games left. We still have a chance. It's all Qin Haodong's fault. Our original plan was perfect. If he hadn't appeared, we would have won. Chiba Mieko said angrily. She had seen clearly on the stage that Guofeng had fallen into their carefully designed trap every time. However, Qin Haodong had quickly corrected them. Otherwise, they would not have lost the game, let alone the bronze head of the 12 zodiacs. I really don't know where such a monster came from. He knows the tea ceremony, but he is also proficient in antiques. Yagyu Hirai gritted his teeth and said, But don't worry. We will win the next game. I don't believe that this guy is also proficient in painting. Chiba Mieko said, That's true. Even if he knows how to paint, he can't compare to Mr. Koyama Lizzie. On the stage, Qian Duoduo was a little excited after winning 2 games in a row. He said happily, Next, let's have the 3rd game of the cultural exchange. The representative of Neon and the representative of Jiangnan City will compete in traditional Chinese painting. The audience applauded warmly. In their opinion, they had already won the first 2 rounds. In the 3rd round of the competition, Huaxia would definitely win. It was no wonder that everyone was so optimistic. In recent years, under the stimulation of the commodity economy, traditional Chinese painting could be regarded as a relatively good inheritance and development among the ancient Chinese culture. Mr. Tang Qingji, the president of the Jiangnan Calligraphy and Painting Association, was a well-known painter in Huaxia. Qian Duoduo continued. In order to ensure the fairness of the competition, we specially invited Mr. Gompos, a world-famous traditional Chinese painter from M country, to be the referee of this game. Let's welcome Mr. Gompos to the stage with applause. After he finished speaking, a bearded Caucasian man walked onto the stage. Qin Haodong asked Tang Qingji curiously, Mr. Tang, what's going on? Isn't he a master of traditional Chinese painting? Why did they invite a person from M country? Tang Qingji said, Gompos is very famous in the painting and calligraphy world. He was originally an oil painter from M country, but he suddenly fell in love with our traditional Chinese painting when he was 30 years old. So he came to Huaxia to study painting. He has been studying for 10 years, and now he is a well-known traditional Chinese painter in the world. In order to ensure the fairness of this competition, after communicating with the Neon delegation, we specially invited Mr. Gompos to be the referee of this painting and calligraphy competition. On the one hand, he is a real person from M country, so he will not have any subjective bias. On the other hand, he is a painting fanatic and is extremely rigorous in painting. The score given is absolutely fair and will not be affected by any factors. Qin Haodong nodded. He didn't expect that there was such an extraordinary person in the painting and calligraphy world. He was indeed the best candidate to be the referee of this competition. Tang Qingji said confidently, Little brother, you just won 2 games in a row. Leave the next one to me. Gompos will ensure the fairness of the competition. Although I am not a top painter in Huaxia, I am more than enough to deal with a few Neon people. As he spoke, he stood up and simply tidied up his Tang suit, ready to go on stage to participate in the competition. At this moment, Qian Duoduo said, Next, let's welcome Mr. Koyama Lizzie, a traditional Chinese painter from Neon. As soon as he finished speaking, a man wearing gold-rimmed glasses and neon clothes walked onto the stage. The man was thin, about 40 years old, and his face was full of arrogance. Tang Qingji, who was about to go on stage, was shocked when he saw the man. He plopped back into his chair. Why? Why is he here? Qin Haodong didn't expect Tang Qingji to have such a big reaction. He asked in surprise, Mr. Tang, do you know this neon man? Tang Qingji said with a pale face, He is not a neon man. His ancestors have been Huaxia people for 18 generations. He has nothing to do with neon. Qin Haodong became more and more confused. He asked, What the hell is going on? I just heard his name is Koyama Lizzie. How could he be Huaxia? Tang Qingji took a deep breath, calmed himself down, and began to tell Qin Haodong. It turned out that Koyama Lizzie's real name was He Lizzie. He was a pure Huaxia man, And he was from the same hometown as Tang Qingji. Lizzie had shown his talent in painting when he was very young. Later, he was admitted to the Huaxia Academy of Fine Arts, the best academy for painting. During his studies in the academy, Lizzie had learned painting from several masters and had made great achievements. He had become famous in the Huaxia art circle before he was 30 years old. Qin Haodong was even more confused when he heard this. He asked, "If so, why did he go to Neon?" Tang Qingji said, "It was all because of a competition." When Tang Qingji was 30 years old, China held the most prestigious Chinese art competition in the country. The prize money for this competition was very high, and it was very influential. Other than the famous Chinese art masters, many other artists signed up for the competition, including Tang Qingji himself. What was the result? How did Lizzie do? What was Mr. Tang's ranking? Qin Haodong asked with great interest. Lizzie showed amazing talent in that competition. He painted a vivid peony painting with the charm of traditional painting. Many people thought that he would win the first place in the competition after seeing his painting. He thought so too, Tang Qingji said with a nostalgic look on his face. However, when the results of the competition came out, Lizzie didn't win the championship as everyone had expected. Instead, he got second place, and I got 21st place. Qin Haodong didn't expect that Tang Qingji was so much better than Lizzie. He asked, "Second place is a good result. Did he go to Neon because of that?" Of course. Lizzie believed that there was a shady deal in the competition. He thought that the judges of the competition had robbed him of the championship. He went to Neon out of anger and married a Neon woman soon. It wouldn't be a big deal if he just married a Neon woman. But he changed his name to Koyama Lizzie and slandered Huaxia in public many times. He denied that he was a Huaxia man. At the same time, he represented Neon in a world painting competition and won the championship. Qin Haodong frowned slightly. Lizzie could question the result of the competition, but he couldn't betray a nation because of it. He shouldn't slander Huaxia and be an enemy of Huaxia. Anyway, he is a descendant of Huaxia. Without the cultivation of Huaxia, he wouldn't have achieved what he has today. What he did was no different from treason. In other words, he is a traitor, which is more hateful than what Li Donghai did. Tang Qingji sighed again and said, "Ever since the incident, the whole painting and calligraphy circle in Huaxia despised Lizzie's behavior. But no matter what, he's really good at traditional Chinese painting. I can't compare to him." Chapter 265. After hearing the conversation between the two, Guofan exclaimed, "What? He's Lizzie. That bastard is challenging Huaxia on behalf of Neon." Lizzie's history had caused a stir in Huaxia more than a decade ago. Qin Haodong didn't know about it because he was too young, but everyone in Guofeng's age knew about it. Now that he knew that Koyama Lizzie was Lizzie, he was so angry that he gnashed his teeth. As the team leader, Gao Fengwen thought about something else. He asked, "Are you sure you're not Lizzie's opponent?" Tang Qingji shook his head and said with a wry smile, "Lizzie was second in the competition, and I was only 21st. The gap between us was huge. Painting is mainly about talent, not personal effort. Over the years, the gap between us has only grown. I'll be humiliated if I go up." At the same time, Lizzie was talking to Qian Duo on the stage. Lizzie said in Neon language, "Mr. Qian, I want to add a condition for the next competition." Qian Duo frowned. More than a decade ago, he was in his 20s, which was the most nationalistic period of his life. He remembered the image of Koyama Lizzie very well, and immediately recognized who he was. "Lizzie, I know you're from Huaxia, or you used to be. I hope you can speak to me directly in Huaxia." Lizzie smiled and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Qian. I've learned a more advanced language, and I've forgotten the low-level language. Now I can only speak the noble Neon language. Please translate for me." Qian Duo was so angry that his eyes were on fire. If it weren't for his identity as a host, he would have rushed up and slapped this guy who had forgotten his ancestors. He suppressed his anger and said, "I'm sorry, I'm just a host. I have no obligation to translate for you." "Well, it doesn't matter. I have my own translator." Lizzie waved to the audience, and a young man in his 20s came up. Unlike Li Donghai, this man worked as a translator in Neon, but he was a Neon native and learned Huaxia as a foreign language. As a result, a strange scene appeared on the stage. A Huaxia man was speaking Neon, and a Neon man was helping him translate into Huaxia. It was estimated that such a scene was rare in the entire history of mankind. Lizzie said in Neon, "Mr. Koyama, Lizzie thinks that today's game is a bit dull. It's not interesting to just decide the winner. He hopes to add a bet. If Mr. Koyama Lizzie loses, he will kneel down to the Huaxia team in public to show respect. Similarly, if the Chinese lost, they would also have to kneel down to Mr. Koyama Liji. Would the Chinese have the courage to accept this challenge?" Qian Duo said angrily. Lizzie, do you know what you're doing?" "Of course I know. I will return the humiliation I suffered to China." Koyama Lizzie smiled and said, "Also Mr. Qian is a host. I hope that you will have a bit of professionalism and call me by my name, Koyama Lizzie. I'm now a noble Neon, not a lowly Huaxia person. You." Qian Duo was so angry that his entire body trembled. At this time, some people under the stage also recognized Lizzie's identity and quickly spread his story. Suddenly there was an uproar. "Lizzie, you have forgotten your ancestors. How dare you set foot on the land of Huaxia? Get out of here. Traitor. Dog. Traitor, get out. Shameless. Don't forget who trained you. Don't forget where you learned traditional Chinese painting. How dare you challenge Huaxia?" The audience under the stage was very excited. If there were not many security guards to maintain order, they would have rushed to the stage and torn Lizzie into pieces. Qin Haodong also became angrier and angrier. Neon had really deliberately planned for this trip to Huaxia. They had even brought a big traitor like Lizzie. If Huaxia's traditional Chinese painting lost to such a shameless guy, the impact on the world would be absolutely unprecedented. Lizzie, who was on the stage, was not moved at all. He looked at the excited people under the stage and said with a smile, "You Huaxia people are good at talking. If you have the ability, come up and challenge me. If you have the ability, accept my additional conditions. If I lose, I will immediately kneel down and apologize to you. Do you have the ability?" After that, he turned to look at Qian Duo and said, "I've been here for a long time. Why haven't I seen the representative of Huaxia? Do they dare not accept the challenge? Don't admit defeat directly. That's too boring. We have to accept his challenge and teach this traitor a lesson. Let him know what Huaxia's traditional Chinese painting is. Mr. Tang, teach this shameless guy a lesson. Make him kneel down." People under the stage only knew how hateful what Lizzie had done, but no one knew his attainments and achievements in painting as well as Tang Qingji did. Therefore, they asked the Huaxia side to accept the challenge as soon as possible. In their opinion, it was easy to defeat a villain like Lizzie. Seeing this scene, Gao Fengwen and the others on the rostrum were livid. Finally, Tang Qingji gritted his teeth and said, "Brother Gao, I'll go up and have a try." Gao Fengwen said, "Old Tang, don't do it if you're not 100% sure. At worst, we can admit defeat." Tang Qingji insisted, "No, we can admit defeat to anyone, but we can't admit defeat like this kind of person who has forgotten his ancestors. But with this guy's arrogance, if he really loses, it will be even more difficult to deal with it." Gao Fengwen held back his words. If he really lost, he would have to kneel down and apologize according to Lizzie's proposal. That would be even more humiliating. It would be better to admit defeat directly. Tang Qingji naturally understood the meaning of Gao Fengwen's words. He stared at him and said, "Don't worry. If I lose, I'll kill myself. I won't kneel down to this traitor, even if I'm beaten to death." At this time Guofeng said, "Okay, you two stop fighting. Brother Qin has already gone up." The two looked up. Sure enough, Qin Haodong was already standing on the stage. Can he do it?" Tang Qingji looked worried. Although he had heard about Qin Haodong's deeds from Guofeng, he felt that it was too exaggerated. He did not think that this young man could compare with a real painter, let alone the extremely talented Lizzie. Guofeng said firmly, "Don't worry. Brother Qin is an extraordinary person. I don't think it's possible without him." After seeing Qin Haodong on the stage, the audience cheered. They did not think too much. They just thought that this young man had just surprised them twice, so this time it should not be an accident. On the neon side, Yagyu Hirai looked nervous. This bastard, he's on the stage again. Is he good at painting? Logically speaking, it shouldn't be. No one can be proficient in so many industries at such a young age. Chiba Mieko said that, but she had a bad feeling in her heart. She always felt that Qin Haodong would bring them more trouble. Qian Duoduo looked relieved. He had seen with his own eyes that Qin Haodong had quickly drawn Wu Dozi's lotus painting with the left and right swimming dragon technique. This kind of superb skill should not be inferior to the fake neon in front of him. Lizzie looked at Qin Haodong disdainfully and said, "Young man, don't like to be in the limelight. Even if you have some skills, you will not be my opponent. Hurry up and replace that old guy Tang Qingji." Qin Haodong smiled and said, "People like you who don't even know who your ancestors are not worthy of Mr. Tang's help." Lizzie's face darkened as he said, "It seems that you won't give up until you see the coffin. Since you want to compete with me, do you dare to accept my conditions?" "Of course, or I won't come up," Qin Haodong said coldly. "And I think your conditions are too lenient. I also want to add one more condition. No matter who loses, they will destroy their own hands and never paint again. How about that? Do you dare to accept it? If not, go back to Neon, and don't come to Huaxia for the rest of your life." He was completely infuriated by this traitor. He had to make this guy pay the price today. Lizzie was shocked. He didn't expect Qin Haodong to make such a bet. He knew very well that the reason why Neon had accepted him was because of his painting skills. If both of his hands were destroyed, the Neon people would definitely kick him out. Tang Qingji was also shocked and said quickly, "This young man is too impulsive. He doesn't know how good Lizzie is at painting. Hurry up and stop him." It was obvious that he was not optimistic about Qin Haodong's chances of winning. Guofun was a little worried, but he still said, "I have never seen Brother Qin do something he is not sure of. Since he said so, he must have his reasons. Let's not interfere." Gao Fengwen thought for a moment and said, "Yes, although Dr. Qin is young, he is not an impulsive person. I think he is sure that he will win." Seeing that both of them said so, Tang Qingji didn't say anything else. He could only watch quietly. Seeing that Lizzie did not speak for a long time, Qin Haodong asked sarcastically, "What? Don't you dare to bet?" Lizzie was in a bit of a dilemma. Qin Haodong had agreed to his conditions. If he didn't agree to the conditions put forward by the other party, he would immediately be in a weak position. However, from another perspective, few people in the whole of Huaxia could be his opponent, unless those old guys at the level of Mount Tai and the Big Dipper came out. The young man in front of him had just shouted such a bet to scare him away. Thinking of this, Lizzie suddenly became confident and said, "Why not? As long as you dare to draw, I will dare to accept it." Seeing that Lizzie had agreed, Qin Haodong turned to Gompos, who was sitting in the referee's seat, and said, "Mr. Gompos, you heard our bet. Can you be a notary?" Gompos spread out his hands and said, "As a painter, I really don't want to see this kind of thing happen. But since both of you have agreed, I can be a notary." This foreigner had studied painting in Huaxia for 10 years, so he spoke Huaxia very fluently. After the two sides negotiated, the competition officially began. Lizzie said confidently, "I'll go first." After that, he went to the drawing table set up by the staff, picked up the paintbrush, and began to paint. At this time there was a lot of noise under the stage. Everyone wanted to use their own way to affect the state of painting of the traitor. However, the moment Lizzie picked up the paintbrush, he seemed to have changed into a different person. He looked serious and had a calm temperament. He really had the demeanor of a master. As time went by, the outline of a picture had appeared on the electronic screen. It was a peony, standing proudly among hundreds of flowers, with a noble temperament, like the king of flowers. Tang Qingji sighed and said, Lizzie is best at painting peonies in his life. Today this guy has used his unique skill. It seems that he is determined to win. It will be too difficult for Brother Qin to win." Chapter 266. Guofeng said, "Don't worry too much, Mr. Tang. It's not a big deal for Brother Qin to draw another lotus picture of Wu Daozi. At least it won't be worse than He Lizzie's." It had to be said that He Lizzie did have some painting skills. As time went by, the noise under the stage slowly subsided. After a while he began to finish. The brush kept moving on the rice paper, and a delicate and beautiful peony picture appeared on the big electronic screen. With a shake of his wrist, he sketched the last stroke. A peony stood proudly. It was so beautiful that it made people feel like it was the king of flowers. Whether they liked He Lizzie or not, everyone couldn't help but admire his painting skills. This painting had indeed reached a very high level. He Lizzie threw the brush aside and said proudly, "Mr. Gompos, please give me a score." As a referee, Gompos came to He Lizzie's peony picture and carefully evaluated it from beginning to end. He kept nodding and said, "Good, your peony picture is really good. It has the charm of Huaxia traditional painting. I give you 85 points. Others didn't think much of it, but Tang Qingji knew that Gompos had very strict requirements for painting. 85 points was definitely a high score. If it were an ordinary contestant, he might not be able to pass. He Lizzie was also very satisfied with this result. He turned to look at Qin Haodong and said proudly, "Boy, don't you want to compete with me? It's your turn." Qin Haodong didn't seem to see the peony picture. He said lightly, "You even forgot the most basic thing of being a human. I won't compete with you. You don't deserve it." He Lizzie's expression changed and he said angrily, "What do you mean? Are you kidding me? We've already made a deal, we've already made a bet." Everyone's expression changed greatly. Although He Lizzie was despised by everyone, Qin Haodong's behavior of going back on his word was difficult to win everyone's approval. "What's the hurry? Our bet is still valid, but I have to find a contestant with the same status as you." After Qin Haodong said that, he stepped off the stage in front of everyone's surprised eyes and came to a little girl in the front row. The little girl looked to be in her early 20s. She was holding a cute little black poodle in her arms. The puppy was not too big, only about 3 or 4 months old. It looked extremely cute. He smiled at the little girl and said, "Beauty, can you lend me your dog? I'll return it to you as soon as the competition ends." "All right, I can lend it to you." The little girl didn't understand what Qin Haodong was going to do, but out of her trust in him, she handed over the puppy without hesitation. Qin Haodong returned to the stage with the poodle in his arms. Everyone was confused. What did he mean by bringing a dog up? Was he going to use a dog to compete with He Lizzie? He Lizzie said angrily, "What do you mean?" Qin Haodong smiled slightly and said, "It's a competition. The status of the contestants must be equal. You are a dog raised by the Neon people, and this is a dog raised by the Huaxia people. You two dogs are just opponents." Being called a lackey in public, He Lizzie flew into a rage out of humiliation and shouted, "Bullshit! Are you going to compete or not? If not, I'll cut off your hand." Qin Haodong didn't care. He turned to Gompos and said, "Mr. Gompos, can I let this dog compete in painting?" Gompos was also a little confused. He had never seen such a competition. He thought for a moment and said, "No matter what method you use, as long as you take out a painting in the end, it's okay. But there's one thing. You have to fulfill the final bet yourself." Qin Haodong looked at He Lizzie and said, "See? The rules allow it. Today, I'll use this dog to win against you." "Boy, you're just playing with words. When you lose, I'll cut off your hand." He Lizzie was so angry that he almost went crazy. However, he didn't believe that a dog could win against him. He secretly made up his mind to cut off the hands of this abominable toy boy later. Tang Qingji, who was under the stage, stamped his feet and beat his chest and said, "This young man is still too impulsive. Although he looks very happy, he will definitely lose this competition." Lang Sanyuan shook his head and said, "I thought he had great skills. It turns out that he's a brainless guy." Gao Fengwen and Guofeng were also nervous. They had thought that as long as Qin Haodong could draw the lotus painting, he would at least not lose. They hadn't expected that he would get a dog. On the foreigner's side, Yagyu Hirai laughed and said, "Idiot, a complete idiot. I was a little worried that he would disrupt our plan, but now it seems that it's completely unnecessary." Later, we'll cut off his hands, so that he won't be able to participate in the Chinese medicine competition. Chiba Mieko also relaxed her frown. Qin Haodong had always been a big problem for her, so it would be best to get rid of him. However, she still couldn't understand. This young man didn't look like a brainless person. How could he do such an impulsive thing? Qin Haodong didn't care what the others thought. He directly asked the staff to fetch 3 buckets of water and a small bucket of ink. After everything was ready, he rolled the little poodle in the ink and threw it on the rice paper on the table. Seeing that Qin Haodong was not joking and had really put a puppy on the paper, there was an uproar on and off the stage. Using a dog to paint, wanting to win over a real artist? Even if one thought about it with one's heels, it was also impossible. The little poodle was only 3 or 4 months old. It had been in a panic when it left its owner's arms. It had just rolled in the ink and immediately ran forward after being released. Maybe because it was too flustered and its feet were a little slippery after being stained with ink. It suddenly fell to the ground after running a few steps. The ink on its body was black. The little poodle was even more confused. It got up and continued to run forward. Soon it ran through the rice paper. Qin Haodong took the little poodle and turned around to give it to Qian Duoduo. "Brother Qian, please help me clean it and send it back to the little girl." Qian Duoduo didn't understand what he was going to do, but he could only do as he was told. No one paid attention to this. Everyone's eyes were focused on Qin Haodong's drawing paper. Because the paper had been dipped in too much ink, the footprints left by the little poodle and the marks that it had just fallen on were all covered with ink, making it look like a pool of water. The footprints were better. They were shaped like plum blossoms. However, the marks it had just fallen on were a mess. They didn't look like anything. "Qin Haodong, this is the painting you made with a dog. Do you think you can beat me with this?" Lizzie laughed. His face was full of ferocity. He seemed to have seen the scene of Qin Haodong admitting defeat. Yagyu Hirai, who was under the stage, laughed unscrupulously and shouted, "Is this also called a painting? Isn't it much better to get someone to sprinkle some ink on it?" Chiba Mieko did not speak, but there was a smile at the corner of her mouth. She had used all the thinking methods in her mind, but she had not thought of a way for Qin Haodong to turn the tables. Although the Huaxia people under the stage did not laugh, everyone was disappointed. In their opinion, Qin Haodong was bound to lose. How could such a messy painting be compared with the peony painting? Gampo shook his head. Obviously, he did not agree with the painting in front of him. He said to Qin Haodong, "Mr. Qin, is your painting done?" Qin Haodong said, "Don't worry. There's still a little bit left." "What do you mean? Didn't you say you wanted to make a painting with a dog? The dog has been taken away. Do you still want to continue painting?" Lizzie's face was full of ferocity. "Since you let the dog be your opponent, of course I won't use the brush. However, this painting is still lacking the last step." The last step? What did he mean? Everyone's heads were dizzy. They could not figure out what this young man wanted to do. Could he change the result without using the brush? Yagyu Hirai said with a smile. "He lost and still doesn't admit it. Let's see how long he can pretend." Tang Qingji, Gao Fengwen, and the others were all confused by what they saw. Lizzie sneered and said, "Then hurry up. I want to see what you have to say after this last step." "It'll be done soon." Qin Haodong was still calm. He went to the table, grabbed a corner of the rice paper, and shook his wrist gently. With a crashing sound, the xian paper was already stained with ink. With a shake of his hand, the ink immediately flowed out and covered the entire scroll. Qin Haodong put the rice paper back on the table and said, "It's done." "What do you mean it's done? Isn't this a joke?" The people on and off the stage did not understand. What the hell was Qin Haodong picking up the rice paper and shaking it? Could it be that this was also a way of painting? No, look. Just as everyone was feeling puzzled, someone suddenly yelled out. Everyone's attention was turned back to the painting. Tang Qingji said in a trembling voice, "Oh my God! How is this possible? What did I see?" With a shake of Qin Haodong's hand, the xian paper, which was in a mess just now, scattered the ink. The footprints left by the little teddy were connected with each other, and magically formed a plum blossom picture. The plum blossoms on the picture stood proudly. The ink flowed and formed dry tree trunks. The little teddy's footprints formed plum blossoms sporadically on it. The most amazing thing was that the place where the teddy had just fallen had become two rugged rocks. The traces left by the teddy's fur formed folds on the surface of the strange rocks, which looked more vivid. The peony painting that Lizzie had just drawn gave people a feeling of wealth and prosperity. However, although the winter plum blossom painting in front of them didn't have any flower embellishment, it gave people a feeling of pride and contempt for the wind and frost. The whole audience was silent. No one had expected that Chin Haodong's gentle shaking could create such an extraordinary painting. Yagyu-hir-ai, who had been laughing unscrupulously, forgot to close his mouth at this time. He was confused and dull. Amazing. It was really amazing. A little teddy who knew nothing could make such a painting. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, no one would have believed it. It's an eye-opener. It's an eye-opener for me today. There were tears in Tang Qingji's eyes as he spoke. As a painter, he naturally knew how difficult Chin Haodong's painting was. It seemed to be a simple shake, but in fact, it required a clear grasp of how much ink was left on the rice paper, and a perfect control of the strength and direction. Only in this way could the ink flow to form the tree trunk, and finally form a complete painting. All the details had to be perfectly integrated in the brain, and no mistakes could be made. In summary, it could only be described as a magical skill. After a moment of silence, there was a sudden burst of warm applause backstage. The audience seemed to have seen the hope of winning. At least such a painting was not inferior to Lizzie's peony painting. Gompo's face was full of shock. This painting seemed to be a little teddy bear that ran out. This young man did nothing. But in fact, the most important thing was the last shake. It was even more important than the finishing touch. If there was a little difference, it would go 1,000 miles wrong and destroy the painting. Qian Duoduo woke up from the shock and shouted excitedly, "Mr. Gompos, please give your score." Chapter 267. Chin Haodong also turned his head to look at the referee, who was known for his fairness. He didn't know how many points he would get. Although the painting had been made by the little poodle, in fact, it had been completed under his control. The last shake seemed simple, but the strength of the shake, the direction, and the timing were all very particular. As long as there was a little mistake, the whole game would be lost. All of this could only be done by a person with an extremely powerful spirit like him. At this time, Gompos had become the focus of attention. Everyone's eyes were focused on his face. The Huaxia people naturally hoped that he could give a high score, while the Neon side hoped that he would give a score lower than Lizzie's, even by 1 point. Gompos looked at the plum blossom painting in front of him and was silent for a full minute. When everyone was about to collapse, he looked up and said, "Putting aside the painting process, I give it 85 points based on the quality of this painting alone." As soon as he said this, there was a sigh in the field. All the Huaxia people were slightly disappointed. They had thought that Chin Haodong could once again show a miracle and defeat the Neon guy. They hadn't expected that it would still be a draw. Although the Neon side had not been able to win, they were still very satisfied with the result. They had finally gotten a point, although the score looked very embarrassing and disgraceful. Chin Haodong's face was calm, and no change in his emotions could be seen. In his opinion, the score given by Gompos was fair. Indeed, in terms of the quality of this painting alone, it was comparable to Lizzie's peony painting, but it was better in the process and means of painting. Even people who didn't know how to paint could see that Chin Haodong had drawn a painting with a dog. He hadn't even touched the brush. This painting had the same score as Lizzie's peony painting, which had been made with all his strength. In any case, Lizzie had lost. A person fighting a dog to a draw, no matter what, was still a shameful thing. Gompos continued to announce, "I announce that the result of this painting competition is a draw." Just when everyone thought that the game was over, Lizzie suddenly stood up and shouted, "Mr. Gompos, I don't agree with your referee. I think I should be the winner of this game." Everyone present was stunned. Even Yagyu-hir-ai did not expect Lizzie to object. Everyone could see that Chin Haodong had actually won the game. It was already very lucky for him to get a draw point. Gompos frowned and said, Mr. He, can you give me a reason? He Lizzie said plausibly. Everyone has seen this painting just now. The key is the last step. If it weren't for the last shake, it wouldn't even be a painting. In other words, this painting was drawn by a man and a dog. Their total score is the same as mine, so I should be the winner. Everyone was dumbfounded. They didn't expect He Lizzie to be so shameless. He was shameless to the extreme. Shameless, simply too shameless. Traitor, can't you have some shame? He Lizzie, I'll give you 10 dogs. If you have the ability, you can also cooperate to draw a painting. Tang Qingji was so angry that he stared and scolded. He Lizzie really doesn't know what shame is. Can't he see that in terms of painting attainments, he and little brother Qin are miles apart? Gao Fengwen said, That's not surprising. If he knew shame, he wouldn't have done such a thing that he forgot his ancestors. Gompos frowned. Deep down, he also felt that He Lizzie's request was a bit shameless. However, Chin Haodong was indeed cooperating with him. Generally speaking, as long as a painting was done by one person, then no one else could touch it, not even to the extent of giving it pointers. In the plum blossom painting just now, the little poodle had first stepped on the plum blossom, and Chin Haodong had completed the whole painting by skillfully shaking it. Both of them were indispensable. He Lizzie cried again. It's not fair to compete with a work created through cooperation. Chin Haodong glanced at him and asked, What do you think is fair? He Lizzie said, You relied on cooperation to get the same score as me. It's very simple. You lost this game. After that, he shouted to the audience, Get me a knife. I'm going to cut off his hands. Hearing his shout, someone immediately brought up a small katana. The audience was in an uproar again. This shameless guy had obviously lost, but he still wanted to cut off Chin Haodong's hands. It was too much. Yagyu Hirai smiled again and said, The shamelessness of Huaxia people is really beyond my imagination, but I like it. He had already seen that not only this game, but Chin Haodong would also be the enemy of the whole Neon in the future. If He Lizzie could cut off Chin Haodong's hands, he would definitely be very happy to see it. As for whether the process was shameless or not, he did not care at all. Gompos couldn't stand it anymore and said, Mr. He Lizzie, I think a draw is the best result of this game. He had just figured out that a dog could not paint. Strictly speaking, this painting should be regarded as Chin Haodong's work. On the surface, it was a cooperation between a man and a dog. In fact, the young man's painting level had reached a very high level, so he could do this. He Lizzie had already taken advantage of the situation by ruling a draw. In this case, he still wanted to cut off the opponent's hands, which was really shameless. As a painting addict, he naturally did not want to see a painting genius like Chin Haodong stop here. Originally, he wanted to use the authority of the referee to insist that this game was a draw. Unexpectedly, Chin Haodong said, Mr. He, what you said is a little reasonable. Let's consider it as cooperation. But I want to ask, how can you admit defeat? You want me to admit defeat? He Lizzie sneered and said, I'm also a reasonable person. If your painting can score higher than the peony painting, I will naturally admit defeat. But now that you have cooperated with me, I can only say that I have won. Chin Haodong said with a smile. That seems to make some sense. He Lizzie said proudly, What do you think? You have nothing to say, right? Then just admit defeat. Admit defeat? Since you said so, I will make you admit defeat. Chin Haodong said. In fact, my painting is not completely finished yet. Mr. Gompos's score is a little early. Only then did everyone realize that it was Chen Duo who had just asked for a score. Logically speaking, it should have been Chin Haodong himself who had asked for a score. Gompos said with a slight apology, Mr. Chin, I was a little reckless. I gave the result without asking for your opinion. But what else can you do? According to the agreement, you can't use a brush. He Lizzie said, That's right. What else can you do if you can't use a brush? Do you want to shake it a few more times? Let's see what other tricks you can play. He was very confident in his heart. At this time, the ink on the painting had dried. Even if Qin Haodong shook the painting, there would be no change. Tang Qingji frowned. He really could not think of any way that Qin Haodong could improve the score of this painting. Yagyu Hirai said nervously, I don't know what this Huaxia man can do. Chiba Mieko said, He Lizzie is a B** starred. He should have quit while he was ahead. I have a bad feeling that he is going to lose this competition. Under everyone's attention, Qin Haodong took the plum blossom painting in his hand and slowly rolled it into a cylinder. He blew into the cylinder and then said to Gompos with a smile, My painting is completely finished. Please give me a score. F***CK, it's finished just by rolling it up and blowing? What the hell is this? The glasses of everyone present were broken. No one could see what he was doing. Was blowing also a way of painting? Gompos took the painting in his hand with a puzzled face and spread it out on the table again. When his eyes fell on the painting again, he was suddenly stunned. Although the painting just now was called the Winter Plum Blossom Painting, there were rocks and winter plum blossoms, but no plum blossoms. However, this painting was different now. The slightly black flower bud was surrounded by white, like a blooming plum blossom. Whether it was in terms of appearance or artistic conception, it was a level higher than before. Oh my God, how did you do it? Gompos had studied painting for many years and had seen many world-famous painters. However, it was the first time he had seen such a magical painting. It was simply a magic painting. Lizzie was also dumbfounded. He couldn't understand how the plum blossoms in this painting had bloomed. Was this a painting or a magic trick? He cried, I protest. This is not a painting. This is magic. The protest is invalid. This is Mr. Qin's magical way of painting. Gompos glared at Lizzie and then said formally, I will now give the score. Mr. Qin's Winter Plum Blossom painting is 95 points. In this round, Huaxia wins. As soon as he finished speaking, there was a thunderous applause. All the Huaxia people cheered. Victory! We won again. The fake Japanese lost. Long live Qin Haodong. Long live Qin Haodong. If you don't court death, you won't die. Isn't it good to get 1 point? Now you've completely lost. Yagyu Hirai slammed his fist on the table and cursed. Damn it. What a stupid thing this guy has done. Chiba Mieko's face was pale. She had just had a hunch that Lizzie would lose, but she hadn't expected that Qin Haodong would win in this way. She really couldn't imagine how magical this young man was. He had won the competition with just a breath. Lizzie, who was on the stage, looked pale. At this time, he was full of regret. Wasn't it good to get 1 point? Why did he have to be greedy? Now he had lost in a mess. Qin Haodong stepped in front of him and said, How about it? What else do you have to say now? Of course, Lizzie didn't want to admit defeat. However, the referee had already given the result. He really couldn't think of a reason to refute it. As a Huaxia person, you have forgotten your ancestors. You have a traitor as your father. Huaxia cultivated you. But now you return the kindness with ingratitude. The more Qin Haodong spoke, the angrier he became. His voice became sharper and sharper. Finally he said coldly, Since you have lost, hand over your hands. Don't touch Huaxia's traditional painting ever again. Dr. Qin is right. Hand over your hands. You don't deserve to draw Huaxia's traditional painting anymore. You have a traitor as your father. You have forgotten your ancestors. You are a despicable man. You deserve it. The audience below the stage was agitated. They already hated this despicable traitor in front of them. Lizzie quickly put his hands behind his back and said with a frightened face, Don't come over. I'm telling you, this is a legal society. I am a neon person now. If you cut off my hands, it will cause international disputes. Don't worry, I won't cut off your hands. It will be too bloody in front of so many people. After that, he patted Lizzie's shoulder gently with an amiable expression. Lizzie breathed a sigh of relief. This toy boy's words were fierce, but he was still afraid of his identity. Huaxia people were still afraid of neon people. Chapter 268. He wanted to raise his hand to wipe the cold sweat off his forehead, but he was horrified to find that he couldn't move his hands. He couldn't even lift them. Bastard, what did you do to me? Why can't my hands move all of a sudden? Lizzie screamed with a horrified expression. As a painter, he knew the importance of his hands. Without them, he would be no different from a good-for-nothing. I don't know. Everyone is watching. I didn't do anything to you. Unlike you who had already prepared the knife to chop off your hands. Qin Haodong smiled more brightly and continued. But I'm a doctor. I can give you a diagnosis now. You were too emotional after losing the game just now, which led to serious muscle weakness in your arms. You can't use your hands anymore. No, it's impossible. My hands are fine. Lizzie roared crazily and tried to reach for the brush on the table next to him. But no matter how hard he tried, he could no longer pick up a brush. God, why are you doing this to me? You can't do this to me. I still need to paint in the future. I still need to paint. Qin Haodong sneered and said, It's very kind of God not to kill a shameless person like you who takes the enemy as your father and deceives your ancestors. Lizzie calmed down a little and suddenly realized that all this must have something to do with Qin Haodong. He knelt down on the stage, hugged Qin Haodong's thigh and cried, I know I was wrong. Please let me go this time. I'm from Huaxia. My name is Lizzie, not Koyama Lizzie. As long as you can restore my hands, I will immediately give up my neon citizenship and return to Huaxia. I will work for Huaxia and win glory for Huaxia. Qin Haodong sneered and said, You think too much. What do you think Huaxia is? Is it a place where you can come and go as you please? Huaxia will not accept a shameless person like you. It's fine if you don't want it, but please heal my hands. Lizzie kowtowed like a chicken eating rice and knelt on the stage, begging bitterly. He knew the importance of his hands. If he really became useless, he would never have a good time in Neon. Qin Haodong said, There's an old saying in Huaxia. I don't know if you still remember it. The evils you bring upon yourself are the hardest to bear. I really can't, I beg you. I'll kowtow to you. I beg you, you must cure my hand. Lizzie begged on the stage, and the Huaxia audience felt very happy. This shameful traitor finally got what he deserved. Yagyu Hirai's face was livid. Lizzie was now a Neon national. He was crying and kneeling there, which was a disgrace to Neon. He said to a Neon warrior beside him, Go and take him down. Don't embarrass yourself here. The Neon samurai answered and quickly stepped onto the stage. He grabbed Lizzie's shoulder and dragged him out of the venue. Looking at the miserable Lizzie, Qin Haodong shook his head. He had brought this upon himself. People like him, who could even betray their ancestors and people, would not have a good end in Neon. Once they lost their value, they would be worse than dogs. At the end of the game, Gompos left the scene, and Qin Haodong also turned and walked down the stage. At this time, there was a burst of cheers, and everyone was cheering for his performance. After returning to the stage, Tang Qingji was the first to greet Qin Haodong. He bowed deeply to Qin Haodong. Mr. Tang, what are you doing? Qin Haodong quickly reached out and helped him up. Tang Qingji said excitedly, Little brother Qin, you've helped me a lot today and saved the face of Huaxia. You deserve this bow from me. Qin Haodong said, As a descendant of Huaxia, it's my duty to do something for Huaxia. You don't have to do this, Boss Tang. After they sat down again, Tang Qingji asked again, Little brother Qin, your move just now was really beautiful, but I really don't understand. How did you get the last plum blossom kung fu? Qin Haodong smiled slightly and said, It's just a little trick. It's not worth mentioning. Of course, he couldn't tell the truth. He had just used green wood genuine qi to change the color of the ink, which was beyond the art of painting. On the Neon side, Yagyu Hirai was so angry that his eyes turned red. He whispered, I must kill this Huaxia man. Now they had lost 3 games in a row. According to the best of 5 rules, they had lost the competition. All of this was caused by Qin Haodong. To be precise, they had carefully prepared for so long, but they had lost to 1 person. No wonder they were angry. We should have gotten rid of this man yesterday, Chiba Mieko said. But it's too late now. With so many people watching, we can't act rashly. Yagyu Hirai knew that she was right. He took a deep breath and suppressed his anger. He turned to a young man next to him and said, Yagyu Shizukumo, it's your turn in the next game. For the honor of our Neon country and our Yagyu family, You have to win this game. Do you hear me? Yes, young master. Yagi Shizukumo bowed his head, and then stepped onto the stage. Two neon attendants followed him closely, carrying an antique huaxia guqin in their hands. After getting on the stage, he said proudly to Qian Duoduo, "In the fourth game, Neon will challenge huaxia's guqin." Qian Duoduo looked at the list in his hand and said, "You said that you would challenge guqin in the fourth game, but it's not easy to determine who will win and who will lose in music. How will you judge the winner?" Since Neon was the challenger this time, huaxia fully developed its style. All the challenge methods were proposed by Neon, and huaxiao accepted all of them. As for the fourth game guqin, the program only said that it would be a challenge, but there was no clear explanation of the method. Yagi Shizukumo said, "That's easy. I just need to play. As long as someone from huaxia can listen to me, they will win. Otherwise, Neon will win. What kind of competition is this?" Qian Duoduo looked puzzled. Not only him, but the audience also did not understand what the Neon people were doing. Would they win by listening to him play a song? Everyone knew how to listen to music. Was there a need to compete? You don't need to ask too much. Just do as I say. Yagi Shizukumo found a chair and sat down. He asked someone to place the guqin in front of him. Qian Duoduo turned to look at Gao Fengwen and Lang Sanyuan and asked, "Neon has proposed this kind of challenge. Can we accept it?" Although they knew that Yagi Shizukumo's challenge was definitely not that simple, they could not back down now. Moreover, Lang Sanyuan had always been proud. Qin Haodong had just won 3 games in a row. Now it was finally his chance to show off. He said, "No problem. I've already said that no matter what kind of challenge they propose, we will accept it." Gao Fengwen did not know anything about music. Since Lang Sanyuan had agreed, he naturally could not say anything more. Lang Sanyuan said again, "I don't need to deal with this level of players in person. My disciple can do it." He turned to a young man in his 20s and said, "Li Mu, you go." "Yes, teacher." Li Mu stepped onto the stage and sat opposite Yagi Shizukumo. Yagi Hirai and Chiba Mieko secretly breathed a sigh of relief when they saw that it was not Qin Haodong. They were now faintly afraid of this young man. They had just lost 3 games in a row to Qin Haodong. They were really afraid that he would go on the stage again this time. On the stage, Yagi Shizukumo glanced at Li Mu and said, "Huaxia man, are you ready?" Li Mu said, "We can start at any time." At this time, he was extremely confused. He had been learning the guqin from Lang Sanyuan since he was 5 years old. Now he could be regarded as a small success. He did not understand why the Neon would ask him to listen to music. Yagi Shizukumo sneered. His slender fingers gently plucked the guqin. The clear sound of the guqin immediately rang out. The sound seemed to come from the depths of ancient times, piercing people's hearts. An expert could tell whether he was good or not. Although everyone did not like the Neon people, they had to admit that Yagi Shizukumo played the guqin really well. He was playing the famous huaxia song, High Mountain and Running Water. As his fingers moved, the clear sound flowed out, making everyone present feel as if they were in the middle of mountains and rivers. Some people even closed their eyes and were fascinated. This Neon man had a deep attainment. Lang Sanyuan was a master of the guqin, so he immediately heard that Yagi Shizukumo's level was not lower than his. Fortunately, this guy did not propose to compete with him. Otherwise, he would not be sure of winning. In contrast, listening to music was much easier. This kind of song could be listened to for 3 days and 3 nights, without any problem. While he was secretly rejoicing on this side, Li Mu knew his own suffering. This song of high mountains and flowing water was no different to other people's ears. It brought a kind of extremely comfortable enjoyment, but to his ears, it was a kind of torture. Since the music sounded, Li Mu felt that his blood was boiling and rushing to his head. What's going on? He had never encountered such a situation after playing music for so long. He suddenly panicked and tried to control his body, but he could not. A lot of blood rushed to his head, making his face redder and redder. He felt that his head was going to explode. In just a dozen seconds, Li Mu let out a scream, fell on the stage and fainted. What's going on? Lang Sanyuan was enjoying the high mountain and running water with his eyes squinted. Suddenly he saw his disciple fall down. He was shocked. Qin Haodong's pupils suddenly shrank. He had already understood what Yagyu Shizukumo was playing. This neon man actually knew the killing skill of sound. The so-called killing skill of sound was to change the human body's function through music, and it could even kill people invisibly. Fortunately, the neon man's attainment was not too high. Otherwise, Li Mu would have been dead. At this time, the medical staff immediately rushed to the stage and carried Li Mu down. Gao Fengwen was also somewhat confused. Li Mu looked healthy. Why did he suddenly fall down? He said to Qin Haodong, "Dr. Qin, what's going on?" Yagyu Shizukumo, who was on the stage, showed a trace of pride and said to the audience, "You Huaxia people are really sick men of East Asia. You're too weak to even listen to a song. There are 2 more chances. Who's next?" The audience suddenly boiled up. Huaxia people hated the words sick men of East Asia the most. Modern Huaxia was no longer the weak country it used to be. They could no longer bear the humiliation brought by these words. "Neon man, you're shameless. Have you forgotten that you've lost 3 games in a row? Don't be complacent, Neon man. You're bound to lose this game. President Lang, teach this neon man a lesson. Let him see who is the sick man of East Asia." Lang Sanyuan was not a warrior, nor did he know the killing skill of sound. At this time, he did not understand what Yagyu Shizukumo was playing. However, when he saw many people shouting his name, he could only bite the bullet and go on the stage. Chapter 269. Although Lang Sanyuan was arrogant, he did have great attainments in music. He had been elected as the president of the Jiangnan Music Society by virtue of his ability. However, this did not help him in his current predicament. The killing skill of sound used by Yagyu Shizukumo had nothing to do with whether the opponent understood music or not, unless the opponent also knew the killing skill of sound. This was completely out of the scope of music. That was to say, it was not an exchange between Chinese zither, but a Japanese warrior attacking ordinary people. This move was extremely sinister. This was the backup tactic that Yagyu Hirai had come up with. He had originally thought that the first 3 games would be enough to defeat Huaxia, and the killing skill of sound would not be used at all. He had not expected that Qin Haodong would appear out of nowhere and completely destroy their plan. He had no choice but to send Yagyu Shizukumo, hoping that the killing skill of sound could help Neon save some face. Qin Haodong felt Li Mu's pulse. The injury was not too serious, but the killing skill of sound had disturbed his blood. He injected greenwood genuine qi into Li Mu's body and combed him from head to toe. After his blood returned to normal, Li Mu quickly opened his eyes and stood up from the ground. He quickly said, "There is something wrong with the Japanese zither. I feel like my head is going to explode after listening to it." As soon as he finished speaking, he heard another thud on the stage. Lang Sanyuan also fell to the ground. As a teacher, he only lasted a few seconds longer than Li Mu. Immediately, another medical staff carried Lang Sanyuan off the stage. This time, Gao Fengwen did not speak. Qin Haodong reached out and patted him on the chest a few times, using greenwood genuine qi to wake him up. After getting up from the ground, Lang Sanyuan's face was red. He looked at Qin Haodong and said awkwardly, "I'm sorry. I've lost face for Huaxia." Qin Haodong did not care about his previous rudeness and said, "It has nothing to do with you. This is not a fair game at all." Gao Fengwen asked, "Dr. Qin, what's going on? Why did you faint after listening to an ancient song? And we have no problem?" The killing skill of sound was really difficult to explain. Qin Haodong said, "It's very complicated. I'll go up and kill the Japanese." After winning 2 games in a row, Yagyu Shizukumo said proudly, "You are really the sick man of East Asia. You have one last chance. Who dares to come up?" "Allow me." Then he picked up the teacup on the table, walked slowly to the stage, and sat opposite Yagyu Shizukumo. "That damn bastard, why is he here again?" Yagyu Hirai gritted his teeth when he saw Qin Haodong. Chiba Mieko said, "Don't worry. The killing skill of sound is a secret skill that has been lost for many years in Huaxia. Yagyu Shizukumo learned it by chance. It's probably useless even if he comes up. Yagyu Shizukumo looked at Chin Haodong and sneered. Boy, do you want to try my 7-string guqin? Chin Haodong picked up the teacup and took a sip leisurely. Then he said, It's wonderful to listen to music and drink tea. Let's get started. Yagyu Shizukumo's expression changed, and he said with a ferocious expression, Boy, I'll kill you today. After that, his 10 fingers danced wildly on the 7-string zither, and the tune changed from the gentle high mountain flowing water to the murderous ambush from 10 sides. The sound of the zither came out in a hurry, like thousands of soldiers and horses. The cold killing intent swept toward Chin Haodong. Yagyu Hirai looked at everything on the stage with a gloomy expression, hoping that Chin Haodong would die under Yagyu Shizukumo's 7-string zither on the spot. Chin Haodong seemed to be unaware of all this. He sat in the chair, leisurely crossed his legs, picked up the teacup in his hand and took a sip. The sound of his tea was not loud, but it was like a sharp sword piercing through the sweeping music. The monstrous killing intent suddenly disappeared. Yagyu Shizukumo raised his eyebrows. He had not expected that Chin Haodong would break the killing skill of sound. However, in his opinion, it should be an unintentional move. Then, his index fingers danced again, and another wave of killing intent condensed. Chin Haodong put the teacup on the table in front of him, kicked his legs and whistled leisurely. All the people under the stage looked at Chin Haodong nervously, for fear that he would faint on the ground like Lang Sanyuan and his disciple. Unexpectedly, he was not only intact, but he also whistled leisurely. The key was that the tune was so beautiful. It was the second senior brother carrying his wife, which was familiar to everyone in Huaxia. Suddenly, there was a burst of laughter. Chin Haodong's whistle did not seem to be loud, but each tone could accurately penetrate the gap of the 7-string zither, making his breath chaotic and uncomfortable. If the killing skill of sound was compared to the ripples in the water, each scale of Chin Haodong's whistle happened to appear at the bottom of the ripples. Not only did he suppress the other's scale, but even Yagyu Shizukumo's heart slowly beat according to his rhythm. Oh no, I met a master. At this time, Yagyu Shizukumo would not think that it was just a coincidence. It was obvious that Chin Haodong was also proficient in the killing skill of sound, and his level was far above his. If he met such a master in another place, he would immediately pick up the 7-string zither and run away. But now he was competing in the arena. If he lost this game, Neon would lose 4 games in a row. He was afraid that he would not be able to escape the punishment of the Yagyu family when he went back. Moreover, he had just used a killing move, and Chin Haodong obviously did not hold back. The notes of the two sides were intertwined, as if they were competing with genuine qi. It was impossible for one side to stop. Once he stopped now, the other side's killing skill of sound would immediately be like a flood and fierce beast. He could not stop it at all. If he was lucky, he would be injured, and if he was lucky, he would die. It was very likely that his heart would jump out of his mouth. I didn't know that you could bear it. A sneer appeared at the corner of Chin Haodong's mouth, and the whistle suddenly became louder. The scales were like sharp swords, piercing toward Yagyu Shizukumo. Yagyu Shizukumo was already an arrow at the end of its flight. At this time, how could he resist it? He spat out a mouthful of blood on the 7-string zither in front of him, fell to the ground, and became unconscious. The audience could not understand what had happened. At first, 2 people had fainted while listening to the music. Now, even Yagyu Shizukumo, who was playing the 7-string zither, had spat out blood. What was going on? However, it was no longer important. They knew that Chin Haodong had won this game again. Everyone was not stingy with their applause and cheers for the young man, who kept bringing them surprises. Good job, Dr. Chin. Dr. Chin is amazing. Long live Dr. Chin. Dr. Chin, you are my idol. You are the Ultraman of Huaxia. Japanese, you are the sick man of East Asia. Get out of Huaxia. In the overwhelming shouting, Chiba Mieko's face was pale. She looked at Chin Haodong on the stage, and could not say a word for a long time. Yagyu Hirai waved his hand, and immediately 2 neon warriors came to the stage, and took Yagyu Shizukumo off the stage. He turned to Chiba Mieko and said, Miss Mieko, the last game is a traditional Chinese medicine competition. It will be your turn soon. Chiba Mieko sighed heavily and said, Mr. Yagyu, I think we'd better give up. We have lost 4 out of 5 games, and we will definitely lose the last one. I can't compare with Qin Haodong in terms of medical skills. No, this is not in line with the spirit of our warrior. Yagyu Hirai's eyes were blood red as he shouted crazily. In any case, we have to win at least one game on this trip to Huaxia. Otherwise, how can we go back? He was the young master of the Yagyu family, and the leader of this trip to Huaxia. If Huaxia really won 5 o'clock, his name would be nailed to the pillar of shame of Neon. Maybe he would lose his position as the young master. Chiba Mieko cried. But we tried last night. In terms of traditional Chinese medicine, I can't compare with Qin Haodong at all. Miss Mieko, you can do this. Yagyu Hirai whispered a few words in Chiba Mieko's ear. Mr. Yagyu, how can you do this? Chiba Mieko had a shocked expression on her face. Why not? We have to win at least one game. Besides, this Qin guy will definitely be a big problem for our country in the future. We can take advantage of this opportunity to get rid of him. At least, we have to make him a useless person. Yagyu Hirai said with a crazy look. For our family, for our country, Miss Mieko, don't hesitate anymore. Chiba Mieko thought for a moment. Finally, a fierce look flashed across her face as she said, Well, I'll do as you say. On the Huaxia side, Gao Fengwen and the others were in high spirits. They had already begun to prepare for a celebration. In any case, it was a big victory today. Lang Sanyuan first expressed his gratitude to Qin Haodong, then bowed his head and apologized. Dr. Qin, please forgive me for being rude to you. He was now completely convinced by Qin Haodong's ability and character. Qin Haodong waved his hand and said carelessly, Forget it. It's all in the past. Let's prepare for the next game. At this time, Qian Duoduo, who was on the stage, shouted, Next is the last game. Representatives of both sides, please come on stage. Gao Fengwen said, Dr. Qin, let me try this game. If I can't do it, you can do it. Qin Haodong nodded with a smile. He didn't want to be in the limelight and become a cockroach. Besides, Gao Fengwen's medical skills should be able to win this game. After all, traditional Chinese medicine was Huaxia's traditional Chinese medicine. Even a skinny camel was bigger than a horse. Mr. Gao, I'll be your assistant. Qin Haodong followed Gao Fengwen to the stage. However, he stood at the back and did not represent Huaxia. On the Neon side, only Chiba Mieko was on the stage. Unlike before, she had changed out of her kimono and into a neon samurai suit with a long neon sword at her waist. Qin Haodong frowned slightly. Chiba Mieko didn't look like a competition of medical skills. It looked more like a competition of martial arts. After both sides went on stage, Gao Fengwen said in high spirits, Miss Chiba, what do you want to compete with? Acupuncture, massage, bone setting, cupping, decoction. As long as you mention it, I'll accept it. I don't want to compete with any of these. Chiba Mieko pulled out the neon sword at her waist and said, I want to challenge your martial arts. Gao Fengwen looked confused and said, Miss Chiba, are you sure you're not mistaken? We're competing in traditional Chinese medicine. Why are you competing in martial arts? Qian Duoduo said angrily, Are you serious? It's a cultural exchange, and it was arranged to compete in traditional Chinese medicine. Why did it suddenly change to martial arts? If you want to compete in martial arts, go to the Shaolin Temple or Wudong Mountain in Huaxia. Let's see if they can kill you. What's the point of competing in martial arts with traditional Chinese medicine? Can you guys be any more shameless? The audience didn't expect foreigners to do this. They all shouted, Go to the Shaolin Temple to challenge martial arts. I guarantee that you'll be beaten so badly that even your mother won't recognize you. Shameless Neon, why don't you go to the nursing home to challenge the martial arts of Huaxia? You'll have a better chance of winning. You're too shameless. If you can't win, just admit defeat and get out of Huaxia. Chapter 270. Chiba Mieko blushed in the face of the public criticism. However, she quickly regained her composure for the sake of Neon. She glanced around and said, "Mr. Gao, please answer a question for me." "Go ahead. Let's see what reason you have." Gao Fengwen said angrily. "Chinese medicine has a long history. In ancient Chinese medicine, there is a saying that medicine, martial arts, and metaphysics are inseparable. As a Chinese medicine practitioner, he must practice martial arts. Am I right?" As soon as Chiba Mieko finished speaking, the venue immediately quieted down. Everyone's eyes were focused on Gao Fengwen's face. It was the first time they had heard that a Chinese medicine practitioner had to practice martial arts. This, Gao Fengwen, who had been filled with righteous indignation, was now speechless. Chiba Mieko was right. In traditional Chinese medicine, doctors of traditional Chinese medicine had to take a break from martial arts. At least, they had to have some internal qi cultivation. They didn't want to compete with others, but to save people with profound medical skills. The Yellow Emperor and the Plain Maiden were the originators of traditional Chinese medicine. Everyone knew that the two of them were great masters who rarely appeared in the world. However, Huaxia was not what it used to be. After thousands of years, even martial arts had declined. There were fewer and fewer warriors, let alone the martial arts cultivation of Chinese medicine practitioners. In Huaxia, there were very few Chinese medicine practitioners who still practiced martial arts. They could be counted on one hand. In any case, Chiba Mieko's question was right. Gao Fengwen could only nod and say, "Miss Chiba is right. There is such a saying." Chiba Mieko sneered and said lightly, "In this case, we are now at the Huaxia Ancient Culture Exchange. Is there any problem with me challenging the martial arts of Chinese medicine?" Gao Fengwen was speechless for a while. Although Chiba Mieko was obviously twisting words and forcing logic, he could not refute her for a while. "Since you don't object, it means you agree. Now Huaxia has two choices. Either send someone to fight, or admit defeat on the spot. Also, I've said that the martial arts challenge of Chinese medicine practitioners must be a Chinese medicine practitioner." Chiba Mieko turned to look at Qin Haodong. "Am I right, medical sage?" Her last sentence blocked the path of martial artists from China. In other words, even if you were well-versed in martial arts, you couldn't go on stage if you weren't a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner. The reason why he said so was that he was afraid of another warrior like Qi Weiner. After all, Huaxia was so big, who knew which one was a hidden master? Gao Fengwen was completely dumbfounded. He had wanted to compete with the Neon people with his medical skills and win glory for Huaxia traditional Chinese medicine. However, Chiba Mieko had taken an unconventional approach and made him unable to start. Under such circumstances, he could only turn his head to look at Qin Haodong. The young man who had been creating miracles was also a warrior, but he did not know if he was a match for Chiba Mieko. Qin Haodong sighed secretly. It seemed that he couldn't keep a low profile even if he wanted to. The Japanese woman was obviously targeting him. He took 2 steps forward and said calmly, "Since Miss Chiba insists on challenging martial arts, I'll play with you. However, the sword has no eyes, so don't cry when you get hurt." Chiba Mieko slowly raised the neon sword in her hand and made a starting gesture of the Neon One Sword School. She said seriously, "This sword is called the Thousand Blade. Please advise me, Mr. Qin." Qin Haodong smiled and said, "I'm afraid it's not that simple. Is it because I'm so powerful that you're jealous of me and want to take the opportunity to kill me?" Chiba Mieko's expression froze. Qin Haodong's words were exactly what she was thinking. For the long-term development of Neon, she had to get rid of the young man in front of her. "Mr. Qin, this is just a cultural exchange challenge. Please make your move." The audience was excited. They had only wanted to watch a cultural exchange competition, but they hadn't expected the content to be so rich. In the end, there was even a martial arts competition, which made them very happy. "Dr. Qin, beat this woman hard. Dr. Qin, show the neon martial arts in Huaxia. The medical sage is invincible. Long live the medical sage." Although the audience were ordinary people, in their opinion, Huaxia martial arts had always been invincible. Naturally, they would not be afraid of a little neon woman. Qin Haodong stood on the stage with his hands behind his back and said, "You're a guest. I'll let you make 3 moves first." The neon woman's cultivation had reached the 3rd level of the covert power. Although she had been trying to hide it, Qin Haodong could still see through her with his powerful spirit. Chiba Mieko stared at Qin Haodong with burning eyes, but she couldn't see through his cultivation at all. Qin Haodong practiced cultivation methods, so he looked no different from ordinary people. Suddenly, the 1,000 blade in her hand flashed and turned into a stream of light, chopping toward Qin Haodong's head. The strike was fast and fierce, full of killing intent. There was no intention of a competition at all. She simply wanted to cut off Qin Haodong's head. A cold light flashed in Qin Haodong's eyes. He tilted his body slightly, and the 1,000 blade cut from one side of his face. Chiba Mieko turned her wrist, and the 1,000 blade swept across his waist. Qin Haodong's expression changed, and he turned into a shadow behind her. Kill! Chiba Mieko suddenly pulled back her knife and performed a magnificent spinning chop. She was using a knife technique, which was fast, accurate, fierce, and domineering. At this time, she didn't look like a weak neon woman at all. She was a goddess of slaughter. Qin Haodong's figure disappeared again. When he reappeared, he was already on the left side of Chiba Mieko. After 3 moves, he punched Chiba Mieko's shoulder. His cultivation had reached the 5th level of the covert power. Coupled with his rich combat experience from his previous life, and the exquisite martial arts moves of the cultivation world, he could kill this neon woman in seconds. However, he had never liked to completely expose his trump card, so he had suppressed his cultivation to the 3rd level of the covert power. Even so, Chiba Mieko and Yagyu Hirai, who were watching the battle from below the stage, were surprised. Originally, they had thought that Qin Haodong's cultivation was at most at the 6th or 7th level of the overt power. They hadn't expected him to be similar to Chiba Mieko's. The 2 of them fought back and forth on the stage. Because Qin Haodong didn't want to show off too much, the fight lasted for more than 100 moves. Chiba Mieko was a little anxious. This was the last battle of Neon. If she lost, there would be no chance to save face. She held the knife with both hands and cried, "Qin-kun, although you are very good, it's not a disgrace to die under the 1,000 blades. I told you not to cry when you get hurt." Qin Haodong smiled slightly. He knew that the woman was going to use a killing move, but it was not a challenge for him. 1,000 blades. There was a flash of sharpness in Chiba Mieko's eyes. The 1,000 blades in her hand instantly turned into thousands of knife lights and stabbed at Qin Haodong. At this time, it seemed that she was holding thousands of swords in her hand. The whole thing surrounded Qin Haodong, making it impossible to tell which knife light was the real 1,000 blades. Yagyu Hirai stood up suddenly, his eyes full of excitement. Miss Chiba had actually mastered the 1,000 blades. She was indeed a genius of neon. On the Huaxia side, all the audience stood up and looked nervously at the stage. Under the knife lights all over the sky, they couldn't imagine how the young man could dodge. The knife lights flashed like lightning. Soon, the sky full of knife lights had disappeared. When everyone saw the scene on the stage again, the 1,000 blades had been inserted under Qin Haodong's ribs. Ah! Just when people exclaimed and thought that Qin Haodong had met with misfortune, they saw him smile and raise his hand to slap Chiba Mieko's lower abdomen. "That's impossible." Chiba Mieko's face was full of horror. She couldn't figure out how Qin Haodong had found the 1,000 blades in the sky full of knife lights and put it under his ribs. But the truth was the truth. At this time, her 1,000 blades was tightly clamped and could not move at all. Just when she was hesitating whether she should abandon the knife, Qin Haodong's palm had already hit her lower abdomen. Her whole body flew backward in the air and fell to the ground with a plop. Chiba Mieko struggled to sit up from the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. In the end, she was defeated. What kind of monster was this man in front of her? He had single-handedly thwarted the perfect plan of the entire Neon country. Suddenly, she looked crazy and shouted at Qin Haodong, "What did you do to me? Where's my genuine chi? Where's my cultivation?" As a warrior at the 3rd level of the covert power, Her elixir field was as still as an ordinary person's. There was no sign of genuine qi activity. No matter how hard she tried, there was still no reaction. My cultivation has been destroyed. This thought suddenly appeared in her mind. Chiba Mieko could no longer control her emotions and burst into tears. As a genius of the generation in Neon, she had been accustomed to the admiration and worship of others. She couldn't accept the fact that she had become an ordinary person. I told you not to cry when you're hurt. Why didn't you listen? Qin Haodong said jokingly. In fact, it's not a bad thing to lose your cultivation. You can be a good doctor in the future and find a good family to marry. Women are women. Why are they always fighting and killing? He was not a kind man. Naturally, he would not be polite to those who wanted to kill him. It was very kind of him to destroy Chiba Mieko's cultivation. If it had not been for the fact that they were in public, he would have killed the neon woman with his palm. This knife is good. You won't need it in the future. Consider it my trophy. Qin Haodong stepped forward, took the scabbard from Chiba Mieko's waist, and put away the 1,000 blades. Then he said with a smile, How about it? Do you want to continue? I'll kill you. Chiba Mieko shouted and rushed toward Qin Haodong. Although she was full of hatred, she had become an ordinary person from a warrior at the 3rd level of covert power. Without the support of genuine qi, she did not have the amazing speed she had before. In addition, she was seriously injured. After taking a few steps, she fell to the ground. This time she felt sad again. She sat on the ground and cried. She looked like an ordinary girl who had been wronged. She had lost her previous arrogance. Qin Haodong looked at the pitiful Chiba Mieko and smiled coldly. There was no pity in his heart. If he had been the one who had been defeated, he would have been a dead body by now. He turned his head to look at the neon team and shouted, How about it? Are there any more doctors on your side who want to challenge? There were many warriors in Neon, but Chiba Mieko was the only doctor who was proficient in martial arts. Yagyu-Hirai's face was ashen. He waved his hand and asked someone to bring Chiba Mieko down. Although he was extremely unwilling, he had to face reality. He could only choose to cry out painfully, We admit defeat. Qian Duoduo held the microphone and announced. In this cultural exchange meeting, the Huaxia delegation won all 5 battles and won the competition. Hooray! There was a jubilation at the scene. Everyone from Huaxia vented their inner joy. Yagyu-Hirai glared at Qin Haodong viciously and left the venue with his people. Chapter 271. The cultural exchange between Huaxia and Neon, which caused a sensation in the south of the Yangtze River, ended with the overall victory of Huaxia. That night, several departments that participated in the cultural exchange held a grand celebration ceremony in dreamy Jiangnan. The protagonist of the victory party was naturally Qin Haodong, who had suppressed the Neon Nation with his own strength. After the celebration began, Guofeng, Gao Fengwen, and others frequently toasted him. Guofeng said, Brother Qin, fortunately, I invited you today. Otherwise, it would be really troublesome. I didn't expect the Neon to be so despicable. They can come up with all kinds of sinister ways. Gao Fengwen said with deep emotion, It seems that this trip to Huaxia has been planned for a long time. The purpose is to make Huaxia lose face. Fortunately, we have the medical sage. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Everyone present nodded. The Neon people used the ancient culture of Huaxia to challenge Huaxia. It was obvious that they wanted to humiliate Huaxia. If they lost to the Neon people in terms of their traditional culture, they would not even be able to get the bronze head of the 12 zodiac animals back. I'm afraid that they would never have the face to go out again. Fortunately, there was Qin Haodong on the Huaxia side. Not only did he win every challenge, but he also won very beautifully and happily. Gao Fengwen raised his glass and said, Let's have a toast to celebrate our victory today. We should celebrate that our ancient culture has a successor. We should celebrate that Huaxia has the medical sage. After he finished speaking, everyone raised their glasses together and drank up the wine in one gulp. The celebration continued. Hua Mingrui, the tea fairy, came to Qin Haodong's side in a black cheongsam. This woman's figure and temperament were simply tailor-made for the Cheongsam. She had a unique beauty when she wore it. Dr. Qin, let me toast you. Hua Mingrui raised the goblet in her hand and gently touched Qin Haodong's. Then she took an elegant sip. She put down the glass and said, Dr. Qin, I was born in a tea ceremony family. My grandparents were tea ceremony masters. Under their influence, I began to learn tea ceremony at the age of 5. I made some achievements at the age of 10 and won the title of tea fairy at the age of 20. All these years, I have never admired anyone in tea ceremony until I met you today. Regardless of whether it is my grandparents or I, no matter how hard we try, we are unable to step into the realm of pervading fragrance. I would like to become your disciple and learn the art of tea. Is that possible? After that, she looked at Qin Haodong with a pair of big watery eyes. This request surprised Qin Haodong a little. He said, Miss Hua's talent in the tea ceremony is far beyond that of ordinary people. As long as you continue to work hard, you will definitely succeed in the future. It's only a matter of time before you enter the pervading fragrance field. Mr. Qin, you haven't said whether you're willing to accept me as your disciple or not. Could it be that my aptitude is so dull that I can't enter your eyes? That's not what I mean, Qin Haodong said awkwardly. Actually, I don't know anything about the tea ceremony. All I know is how to make tea. Hua Mingrui's face turned cold and she said, Dr. Qin, you can refuse me but you can't lie to me. How can someone who can make the pervading fragrance not know the tea ceremony? Qin Haodong scratched his head and said, Well, would you believe me if I told you that I was born with it? He really didn't know the tea ceremony. The reason why he could make the pervading fragrance field was that he used Emperor Greenwood's ability to control the characteristics of plants to stimulate all the fragrance of the tea leaves. But if he was asked to make the pervading fragrance field with the tea ceremony of ordinary people, he really couldn't do it. However, Emperor Greenwood's ability to control plants was innate, so he really couldn't teach Hua Mingrui. Born with it. Is there such a talent? Hua Mingrui was surprised at first, and then she thought of Qin Haodong's clumsy performance when making tea. He really didn't look like a tea ceremony master, and there was no need for him to lie to her. Thinking of this, she believed him a little. But what kind of person was he? He could actually make the pervading fragrance field with his instinct. How could they, who had worked hard to practice the tea ceremony, accept this? Miss Hua, if there's nothing else, I'll leave now. Not only did Qin Haodong say goodbye to Hua Mingrui, but he also left the celebration party. Now that he had an upper-level spirit stone in the storage ring, he was eager to go back and improve his cultivation. He hurried home. As soon as he arrived at the living room, the lights in the living room were turned on before he could turn on the lights. Under the light, Yagyu AI, who was wearing a loose kimono, stood there. Why are you here? Qin Haodong asked in surprise. I'm sorry to disturb you, Mr. Qin. Please forgive my sudden visit. Yagyu AI trotted to Qin Haodong in her wooden clogs. She bowed first and then said respectfully, Mr. Qin, your performance today is really amazing. Whether it's the tea ceremony, painting, or music, you have reached the peak. Even Miss Chiba Mieko is no match for you. You are so powerful and admirable. Qin Haodong had 500 years of experience. Of course, he was not a little boy who would get complacent after hearing a few good words. He said lightly, What do you want? Just say it. Mr. Qin, you know that we Neon people worship the strong most, so I want to stay with you. Seemingly afraid that Qin Haodong did not understand what she meant, Yagyu AI explained with a red face. The biggest characteristic of our Neon women is obedience. As long as I stay with you, you can do whatever you want. Such explicit words, coupled with her bashful baby face, any man would be able to understand the meaning behind it. I'm sorry, Miss Yagyu. I already have a girlfriend. Please go back. Yagyu AI did not expect that Qin Haodong would refuse her like this. After a slight shock, she said, Mr. Qin, let me follow you. You may have misunderstood. I don't need to be your girlfriend, nor will I be jealous. Just let me be your slave. Slave? This word could easily make a man blush and arouse his desire to conquer. Moreover, standing in front of him was Yagyu Ai, a neon woman with a good figure and temperament. Qin Haodong did not speak. He seemed to be a little hesitant about Yagyu Ai's words, as if he was a little tempted. Mr. Qin, I'm still a virgin. I'll satisfy you. Yagyu Ai began to undress. When the wide kimono was separated, Qin Haodong's eyes suddenly widened. There was nothing under the kimono, and the graceful scenery inside began to crazily ravage his eyes. Novelty, excitement, beauty, sexy, desire, and many other words combined made his nostrils heat up and almost make him have a nosebleed. Mr. Qin, although it's my first time, I've learned a lot of skills in this area. I'll definitely satisfy you. Yagyu Ai's kimono fell directly to the ground. Then, she lifted her jade-like legs and slowly walked to Qin Haodong. She stretched out her smooth white arms and put them around his neck. Mr. Qin, I admire you so much. Today I'm yours. You can do whatever you want. Yagyu Ai put on a look that said, Little man, did I come at the wrong time? Should I pretend that I didn't see anything? She was startled and quickly covered her private parts with her hands. She turned around and saw a woman in white in the living room. The woman was extremely beautiful and charming, as if she could affect a man's mind with every move. Although she was wearing clothes, she was 10 times sexier than the naked Yagyu Ai. It was Hu Xiaoxian. She giggled, looked at the kimono on the ground, and said to Qin Haodong coquettishly, Little man, I haven't been home for a few days, and you've been stealing food. Your taste is getting stronger and stronger. You even brought a neon woman home. Are you so hungry that you can't be choosy? Qin Haodong spread his hands helplessly. I didn't ask her to come. She came to me on her own initiative. It has nothing to do with me. Besides, I don't have any feelings for her at all. I was about to drive her away. You're such a bully. Yagyu Ai stood there naked and was constantly criticized by the two people. She showed an extremely aggrieved and tearful expression, then turned around and was about to leave. Suddenly, she turned back and opened her sexy little mouth, shooting a black light directly at Qin Haodong's face. Little devil, you've shown your tail so soon. Neither of them seemed surprised by Yagyu Ai's assassination. Qin Haodong turned his head, and the black light hit the wall behind him. It was a black silver needle, which had penetrated more than half of the wall. It could be seen how powerful it was. At the same time, Hu Xiaoxian had reached out and grabbed Yagyu Ai's neck. She would not show mercy to someone who wanted to assassinate Qin Haodong. With a slight force, Yagyu Ai's neck was broken, and she fell to the ground with a thud. Yagyu Ai had just died, and Qin Haodong had not yet stabilized his footing. Suddenly, a black sword stretched out from the darkness, and suddenly turned toward Qin Haodong's back. At this time, Qin Haodong had lost his center of gravity, so it was impossible to dodge. He stretched out his right hand, and Chiba Mieko's 1,000 blades appeared in his palm. Then, his left foot touched the ground as an axis, and his body spun violently, using a roundhouse chop. The 1,000 blades collided with the sword behind him with a clang. The sword bounced more than a foot high, and disappeared into the darkness in an instant. Ninjutsu? It's a neon ninja. After Hu Xiaoxian shouted, she was on full alert. Qin Haodong did not stop. The 1,000 blades in his hand once again turned into a silver rainbow, and fiercely pierced the void on the left. With another clang, a neon ninja dressed in black appeared. It was Yagyu Hirai, whom he had just met in the afternoon. He took a few steps back, looked at Qin Haodong with a look of horror, and asked, You broke my ninjutsu. How did you find me? It's just a little ninjutsu. Don't make it sound so awesome. Qin Haodong did not care at all. With his powerful spirit, even the most brilliant ninjutsu could not hide. While speaking, the 1,000 blades in his hand chopped toward Yagyu Hirai's head. The attack was fast and fierce, like a lightning strike from the sky. It was too late for Yagyu Hirai to dodge. He could only wave the sword in his hand to block it. With a clang, the sword and the 1,000 blades collided again. This time, Qin Haodong used all his strength. Yagyu Hirai was cut 6 or 7 meters away with the sword. He slammed into the wall behind him, and then spat out a large mouthful of blood. Yagyu did not even have time to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. He cried in horror, You, aren't you at the third level of the covert power? How can you be so powerful? Tonight's assassination was planned by him. First, he had asked Yagyu to seduce Qin Haodong. It would be best if he could kill Qin Haodong in bed. If not, he would assassinate him at the end. Qin Haodong had shown that his cultivation was at the third level of the covert power. He was also at the third level of the covert power. With the same cultivation and his hidden skills, he was confident that he could kill Qin Haodong. Chapter 272. However, he didn't expect that all of this was fake. Qin Haodong's genuine qi was so powerful that it directly injured his internal organs. Qin Haodong's cultivation was at least level 5 of covert power. Qin Haodong made a beautiful knife flower in his hand and said jokingly, Can't I hide my cultivation? Bite me if you can't. Cunning Huaxia man, I'll kill you. Yagyu roared, waved the knife in his hand, and rushed to Qin Haodong again. He was also a favored son of heaven and neon. He was the heir of the Yagyu family, and could be ranked in the top 10 of the younger generation. Originally, he wanted to stabilize his position as the heir by planning this trip to Huaxia. Unexpectedly, he met Qin Haodong in Huaxia and was played by him. He had lost 5 games at the cultural exchange meeting. He had lost all his face, and wanted to regain his face through this assassination. He didn't expect that Qin Haodong would not only break his ninjutsu, but also have a higher cultivation than him. Under the repeated blows, Yagyu who was proud and arrogant, was in a crazy state. He wanted to die with Qin Haodong. However, dying with Qin Haodong required not only courage, but also ability. It was impossible for him to die with Qin Haodong. Yagyu knife did not hit Qin Haodong with all his strength. On the contrary, Qin Haodong's 1,000 blades cut off his arm. His arm fell to the ground with a clang, and blood gushed from the broken arm. The severe pain made Yagyu withdraw from his violent state. His anger turned into fear. He looked at the 1,000 blades dripping with blood in Qin Haodong's hand and shouted, You destroyed Chiba Mieko's cultivation and cut off my arm. The Yagyu family will never let you go. You're about to die, but you're still talking big. Show me what you can do. I'll take it, but you won't be able to see it. Go report to the king of hell. Qin Haodong was about to kill Yagyu Hu Shaoxian stopped him and said, Wait a minute, this guy is still useful to us. What's the use of such a waste? Qin Haodong said. No matter what, he is the young master of the Yagyu family. He still has something in his mouth. I'll take him back to play for a few days. I'll send him back to you after I've used him. Qin Haodong put away the 1,000 blades and said, As you wish. Thank you for giving me face. Hu Shaoxian leaned over and kissed Qin Haodong's face with her plump body. Then she said in a low voice, Did killing the neon woman ruin your plan? Don't be sad. I'll compensate you after I'm done with my work. Forget it, you don't have to pay. From the moment Yagyu appeared, Qin Haodong had felt her killing intent, so he had been on guard all the time. How could he have a relationship beyond friendship with her? No, we still have to pay, Hu Shaoxian said. But now I have to trouble you to stop this guy's bleeding, or it will be dry before we arrive. Where are you taking him? Back to the capital? As Qin Haodong spoke, he reached out and hit several acupoints on Yagyu First, he sealed his cultivation, and then he helped stop the bleeding on his shoulder. No need. If he was the master of the Yagyu family, I would take him back to the capital. He is just a nobody, so I can deal with him in the Jiangnan branch. Hu Shaoxian grabbed Hirai's other arm and walked straight out of the door. Yagyu who weighed more than 50 kilograms, was like a light chicken in her hand, as if he weighed nothing. After she left, Qin Haodong dragged Hirai's arm and Yagyu body into the bathroom. He turned them into a mass of black ash with the body melting powder, and flushed them into the sewer. At Jiangnan Airport, a private charter plane was parked on the runway. The relevant facilities and staff of the airport were ready for takeoff. The pale-faced Chiba Mieko and Yagi Shizukumo were sitting in front of the cabin. They were in the same boat. Both of their cultivations had been destroyed by Chin Haodong. A neon person, who looked like a secretary, ran to Chiba Mieko and said, "Miss Chiba, the airport has given us the last notice. If we don't take off in 10 minutes, we will miss today's departure time. We can only go back to Neon tomorrow." Although they were using a private charter plane from Neon, they had to follow the arrangements of the airport to use the Huaxia airport and the scheduled route. Chiba Mieko sighed and said, "Inform the airport that we will take off in 5 minutes." The secretary agreed and went to contact the airport. Yagi Shizukumo said, "Miss Mieko, the young master hasn't come back yet. Is it appropriate for us to go back now?" Chiba Mieko said, "Yagi-kun made the final arrangements before the assassination. If they don't come back at the scheduled time, he asked us to fly directly back to Neon and ask the master for help. It's an hour later than the scheduled time. It seems that the assassination did not go well. Yagi-kun must have encountered trouble." Yagi Shizukumo said with hatred, "That hateful Huaxia man. Can't the young master kill him with his cultivation?" Chiba Mieko did not speak. She was not optimistic about the assassination. The strength that Chin Haodong had shown was so amazing that people could not see his bottom line. The entire Yagyu family's trip to Huaxia had been ruined by such a person. However, after her cultivation had been destroyed, she was full of hatred for Chin Haodong. So she did not stop Yagyu Hirai. It seemed that the assassination plan had failed. 5 minutes later, their plane took off and went straight in the direction of Neon. At the headquarters of the Yagyu family in Neon, Chiba Mieko was kneeling on the ground. In front of her was a neon man in a kimono. Although he did not look tall, he had a superior aura. He was Yagi Shinji, the master of the Yagyu family. "Mieko, where is Yagyu Hirai? Why don't I see him? Is it because of this failure that he has no face to come to see me?" Nowadays, communication was extremely advanced. Yagi Shinji had already received the report of the failure of the challenge against Huaxia. He had even watched the whole video of the game. Chiba Mieko told him how Yagi Hirai had planned to assassinate Chin Haodong. Finally, she said, "Master, Yagi-kun has not come back. Maybe he is dead. It's all my fault. Chin Haodong destroyed my cultivation. Otherwise, I would have probably succeeded by fighting side by side with him. Bastard, the Huaxia people have gone too far." Yagi Shinji smashed the tea table in front of him. Yagi Hirai was his favorite son. Otherwise, he would not have made him the heir of the family. Now that his life was uncertain, how could he not be angry? However, he was the master of the family after all. He quickly calmed down and said, "Mieko, you can't blame this on yourself. Blame Chin Haodong." Chiba Mieko said, "Master, you must find a way to get rid of this person. If he grows up, he will definitely be a big problem for our Neon country. Go back to your teacher and rest in peace." Yagi Shinji said with a ferocious expression, "This Huaxia man must die. No one can live well after provoking our Yagyu family. Patriarch, I'm counting on you." Chiba Mieko stood up, bowed to Yagi Shinji, and then left the room. Yagi Shinji thought for a moment and said to the attendant at the door, "Go and get Yagiwaka for me." The attendant answered and left. Soon, a neon warrior in his 30s appeared in front of Yagi Shinji. He was Yagiwaka, one of the top 10 ninjas of the Yagyu family. The ninjas of Neon were also divided into levels. Each ninja had a cherry blossom mark on his collar. One cherry blossom was equivalent to a warrior between the first and third level of the covert power in Huaxia. 2 cherry blossoms were equivalent to a warrior between the 4th and 6th level, and 3 cherry blossoms were equivalent to a warrior between the 7th and 9th level. Yagiwaka had 3 cherry blossoms on his collar. His cultivation had reached the 7th level of the covert power. Yagiwaka bowed and asked, "Master, what can I do for you?" Yagi Shinji briefly introduced the situation in Huaxia and said, "Take some people to Huaxia immediately. You must find a way to save Yagyu Hirai and cut that Huaxia man into pieces." "Yes, I promise to complete the task." An hour later, hundreds of ninjas of the Yagyu family were on a plane to Huaxia. The lineup for this trip to Huaxia was extremely large. There was a Sanhua ninja, 2 Sanhua ninjas, 2 Sanhua ninjas, 40 middle-level ninjas, and 50 low-level ninjas. This was almost half of the strength of the Yagyu family. It could be seen that Yagyu Shinji was extremely angry. Qin Haodong knew nothing about all this. After dealing with AI Yagyu's body, he excitedly took out the upper-level spirit stone he had taken from the bronze head of the 12 zodiac animals. The room was immediately filled with abundant spiritual qi. Currently, the middle-level spirit stone had little effect on his cultivation. If he wanted to break through quickly, he could only rely on the upper-level spirit stone. He held the spirit stone in the palm of his hand and began to practice. With the successful operation of the Aoki Hall, the spiritual qi in the room rushed to his body like rivers flowing into the sea, turning into a trace of genuine qi and converging into his dantian. Time passed little by little. He didn't wake up from his cultivation until the sky turned white and the golden rooster crowed. Looking at the upper-level spirit stone that had become powder in his hand, he couldn't help but shake his head. The higher his cultivation, the greater his need for spiritual qi. The last upper-level spirit stone had been used by him, the little fellow, and Hu Xiaoxian, and they had directly promoted their cultivation from the 9th level of the overt power to the 5th level of the covert power. This upper-level spirit stone was used by him alone, but he had only been promoted from the 5th level of the covert power to the 9th level of the covert power. He hadn't touched the threshold of the supreme power realm. It seemed that if he wanted to form the gold elixir and restore his cultivation to the supreme power realm, he would at least need to find another upper-level spirit stone. When they arrived at the Lin's villa, the little fellow had just gotten up. The father and daughter were intimate for a while. Lin Momo said, "You left the factory building to me. Where did you go yesterday?" Qin Haodong said with a smile, "With a capable wife like you, I don't need to do anything. Besides, I can't help you with this kind of thing." "Bah! How can you be so unreasonable when you don't have to do anything?" Lin Momo spat, but she was very happy with his words. She said with a happy face, "I have good news for you. There is progress in building the factory." "So fast. Have you chosen the location?" "Not only has the location been chosen, but we even have a factory." Lin Momo said excitedly, "There is a traditional Chinese medicine factory for sale. We didn't get involved in the pharmaceutical industry before, so we didn't know much about it. The factory has been sold for 2 years, and no one has taken it over. In fact, the factory is very new, and the production line is not backward. It just went bankrupt because of improper management. As long as we get this company, the blood revival oral liquid can be put into production immediately." Qin Haodong said excitedly, "Really? That's great. What we need most now is time." After thinking about it, he asked, "How much money do we need to get this pharmaceutical factory?" Chapter 273. Lin Momo said, "We didn't use too much money, only 500 million yuan. That's at least 300 million yuan less than we expected. How could it be so cheap?" Qin Haodong was quite surprised. Lin Momo said, "Now the traditional Chinese medicine industry is being suppressed by Western medicine, and that's why the original traditional Chinese medicine factory went bankrupt. Who would take over such a factory when the overall traditional Chinese medicine industry is in a slump? That's why they haven't been sold for 2 years." Qin Haodong sighed. This was both good and bad news for him. Fortunately, he could take over the pharmaceutical factory at a lower price and soon open his Tangmin Traditional Chinese Medicine Company. The bad news was that the traditional Chinese medicine industry was in a slump. It seemed that there was a long way to go to revitalize traditional Chinese medicine. The two of them sent the little fellow to kindergarten and then rushed to Lin's group together. Lin Momo said, "We're almost done with the preparation work. I'm going to hold a press conference on the establishment of Tangmin Traditional Chinese Medicine Company tomorrow. Today, we have to contact the major media and do some preparatory publicity work." Qin Haodong nodded and said, "The sooner the better." Hurry up and build our pharmaceutical factory and put the medicine into production. The sooner the blood revival oral liquid enters the market, the more people will be saved. Otherwise, many patients will die of leukemia every day. The two of them talked about the factory and stopped in front of the gate of Lin's group. As soon as they got out of the car, a group of reporters immediately surrounded them. Dr. Qin, we're reporters from Jiangnan Metropolis Daily. I want to ask why there is no follow-up news about the blood revival oral liquid you developed. Is it because the treatment is not effective? Dr. Qin, I'm a reporter from Jiangnan TV station. I want to interview you about the blood revival oral liquid's ability to cure leukemia completely. Dr. Qin, I'm a reporter from Jiangnan Gossip News Network. I want to ask why your blood revival oral liquid stopped producing after treating 100 patients? Are you doing hunger marketing? Do you want to sell it at a sky-high price? Qin Haodong hadn't expected to meet so many reporters as soon as he got to work. He said, "Don't worry, everyone. The blood revival oral liquid has no problem with leukemia. Now I've cooperated with Lin's group and will soon produce it in quantity." As soon as he said that, many reporters started asking questions. Everyone was eager to express their own questions. Qin Haodong said, "Don't worry, everyone. I know you have a lot of questions, but Lin's group has scheduled a special press conference on the establishment of Tangmin Traditional Chinese Medicine Company at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. President Lin and I will answer your questions on the spot. Please go back today." After that, he waved his hand. Saber and the others immediately came over and escorted Lin Momo into the building of the group. The reporters knew about the press conference tomorrow, so they no longer pestered her and went back to prepare. Wang Rubing was in a good mood these days. Li Donghai didn't bother her again after being driven away by Qin Haodong. But when she was about to get off work, her phone rang. It was Li Donghai. She felt a headache when she saw the 3 words on the phone screen. She was sick of Li Donghai, but no matter what, he was still her cousin. She could not block him completely. In desperation, she pressed the answer button and said in a cold voice, "What's the matter?" Li Donghai's helpless voice came from the other side of the phone. "Rubing, what's the matter? Are you not happy to answer my call?" Wang Rubing didn't want to say a word to such a person. She said coldly, "If you have something to say, say it. If not, I'm hanging up." "If you have something to say, don't hang up." Li Donghai said, "I was wrong a few days ago. I want to invite you to dinner tonight and apologize to you in person." "You want to invite me to dinner? Do you want to borrow money from me again? I'm telling you, you've borrowed all the money, and I haven't received this month's salary yet." Li Donghai said, "You're right. I'm rich now. If you need money, just tell me. 30 or 20,000 yuan is not a problem at all. Just take it." Wang Rubing was confused. She didn't know whether what the rogue said was true or not, but it didn't matter to her. She said, "It's better if you don't need money. You don't have to invite me to dinner or apologize to me. Just don't harass me in the future." Seeing that Wang Rubing refused, Li Donghai quickly said, "Don't Rubing. I sincerely apologize to you this time. You have to accept it, or I'll wait for you downstairs." Wang Rubing had no choice but to say, "Well, where are we going to eat?" "Room 302 of Milan Restaurant. I've booked a room. I'll be there soon." Li Donghai hung up the phone excitedly. Wang Rubing put away her phone. She was a little confused by Li Donghai. She couldn't understand why he suddenly seemed to be a different person. Did he really change? She wanted to call Qin Haodong, but she put her phone away after taking it out. Recently, Qin Haodong had been troubled by too many things. Moreover, it was not a big deal for Li Donghai to call her. At most, he would ask for a meal. At worst, he would borrow some money from her. Thinking of this, she drove straight to Milan Restaurant. When she arrived at room 302, she didn't see Li Donghai. She took out her phone and was about to call Li Donghai. Suddenly, she felt someone covering her mouth from behind. Then, everything went black and she lost consciousness. Qin Haodong had been working all day. When he was about to go to find Lin Momo, the phone in his pocket rang. He took out the phone and glanced at it. It was Chi Weiner. He pressed the answer button and heard her say weakly, "Haodong, come and have a look. I'm sick. I feel terrible." "You're sick? How is that possible?" Qin Haodong was a little surprised. He knew very well how strong Qi Weiner's body was. She had taken so many elixirs from him. Her cultivation had reached the 3rd level of covert power. She shouldn't get sick easily. On the other side of the phone, Qi Weiner said discontentedly, "What's wrong? I'm also a human. Why can't I get sick? Come and see me." "Well, don't worry. I'll be there now." Qin Haodong hung up the phone. He said goodbye to Lin Momo and drove directly to Daddy's security company. Since Qi Weiner had been living here, Naylan Wushuang specially arranged a suite with 2 bedrooms and 1 living room for her. There was a living room, a bedroom, and a kitchen. It was no different from an ordinary home. When Qin Haodong entered the door, Qi Weiner was wearing a floral home dress and an apron around her neck. She was carrying dishes from the kitchen to the table. Seeing her lively appearance, Qin Haodong said with annoyance, "Didn't you say you were sick?" "Yes, I'm really sick. Feel my pulse if you don't believe me." Qi Weiner pulled Qin Haodong to sit down on a chair, and then put her white hand in front of him. Qin Haodong reached out his right hand to feel her pulse. He quickly let go and said, "You're sick. Even a cow is not as strong as you. Don't make such a joke again. That's so vulgar. I'm a beauty. How can you compare me to a cow?" Qi Weiner said and suddenly sat on Qin Haodong's lap. Then she reached out and put her arms around his neck. She blushed and said, "In fact, I'm really sick, but it's lovesickness. I suddenly recovered from the moment you came in." Qin Haodong now deeply understood the meaning of this sentence. In the face of the affectionate Qi Weiner, his heart was instantly melted. Qi Weiner gently kissed him on the cheek, and then jumped down from his lap. She pointed to the dishes on the table and said, "Haodong, these are all dishes made by me. Try them and see if they are delicious." Qin Haodong glanced at the dishes on the table, and his face instantly darkened. He had to say that Weiner's cooking skills were really amazing. The green vegetables were fried black, and it was obvious that they were burnt. But why was the thing that looked like a chicken wing green, as if it had been poisoned? "Haodong, try them. I've been busy all afternoon," Qi Weiner said eagerly. Although Qin Haodong was immune to poison, he was really afraid of being killed by this thing. How could he refuse without hurting Qi Weiner's heart? "I'm not too hungry. I'm not in a hurry to eat." He suddenly saw the computer on the table and said, "Why don't you forget to take the computer with you when you eat?" As a top hacker, Qi Weiner couldn't leave the computer at all times. After hearing Qin Haodong's words, she immediately shifted her attention. She said, "Because I want to see you all the time." "See me?" Qin Haodong asked in surprise. "Can you see me with this thing?" Qi Weiner said, "Of course. Now the entire Jiangnan city's surveillance system is under my control. I can adjust whichever camera I want. It's easy to see you." Then she pulled the laptop in front of Qin Haodong, pointed to the screen and said, "Look, I've been watching you coming to me. This is the exit of Lin's group. This is the car. This is our company." Qi Weiner skillfully operated the computer and showed the surveillance pictures to Qin Haodong. Facing such an infatuated girl, Qin Haodong was moved, but he felt helpless. If this went on, what privacy would he have in the future? Qi Weiner didn't know what he was thinking. She still operated the computer and looked at Qin Haodong affectionately on the screen. "Wait a minute." Qin Haodong's expression suddenly changed. He said to Qi Weiner, "Hurry up and switch to the previous picture." "What's wrong?" Although Qi Weiner was puzzled, she immediately returned the computer to the previous interface. This was the picture of Qin Haodong's car passing the intersection of the Milan Western restaurant. Just when he was waiting for the signal light, the surveillance could just shine on a corner of the parking lot. At this time, 2 young men carried a girl into a black car. The girl was Wang Rubing, and Qin Haodong saw at a glance that she was in a coma. Qin Haodong suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. He quickly took out his mobile phone and dialed Wang Rubing's number. Soon he heard the reminder that the phone was turned off. At this time, he was 100% sure that Wang Rubing had been kidnapped. But she was just a girl who had just started working. Why did they kidnap her? Did it have something to do with him? He forced himself to calm down and turned his eyes back to the surveillance picture. The two men were wearing sunglasses and caps, so he couldn't see their faces at all. The time shown in the upper right corner of the screen was an hour ago, which meant that a whole hour had passed since Wang Rubing was kidnapped. What's wrong, Haodong? What happened? Qi Weiner asked. My sister was kidnapped. While speaking, Qin Haodong's body was filled with cold killing intent. Whoever dared to kidnap Wang Rubing must pay the price. Just then his mobile phone on the table rang, showing a strange number. Chapter 274. When Wang Rubing regained consciousness, she found herself in a small valley. Opposite her, a neon man in a samurai suit and holding a neon sword was looking at her. She wanted to speak, but found that her mouth was taped and her body was tightly tied up. Seeing that Wang Rubing had woken up, Yagyu Waka waved his hand. Immediately, a neon warrior came over and tore off the tape on her mouth. Wang Rubing gasped and asked, Who are you? Why did you bring me here? After experiencing so many things with Qin Haodong, her psychological quality had been greatly improved. Although she was a little panicked, she was still rational. She did not struggle irrationally. She knew that it would not only be useless, but would also bring more harm to herself. Since these neon people had tried their best to bring her here, they knew that they would not let her go easily. However, she did not understand why these people had taken her. Miss Wang Rubing, you're very beautiful, Yagyu Waka said in stiff Huaxia language. Wang Rubing did not speak. She just looked at Yagyu Waka quietly. She knew that this neon man had brought her here not to praise her. Yagyu Waka said lightly, Miss Wang Rubing, I heard that you have a brother named Qin Haodong. Hearing this, Wang Rubing immediately understood why she had been kidnapped. It turned out that these neon people had come for Qin Haodong. However, she was not willing to be a hostage like this. She would rather be hurt than be used by the neon people to threaten Qin Haodong. She said, I don't have such a brother. I don't even have a friend with the surname Qin. I think you're mistaken. Miss Wang Rubing, it's no use quibbling now. I'm not quibbling. I really don't know Qin Haodong. Miss Wang Rubing, don't worry. We won't do any harm to you. Qin Haodong has taken the young master of our Yagyu family. I just want to exchange him for you. Of course, you have to cooperate with us. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that my men won't be impulsive when they see a beauty like you. Wang Rubing said, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know Qin Haodong either. Let me go. We came all the way from Neon to Huaxia. We can't be wrong. Yagyu Waka smiled. Since Miss Wang doesn't want to admit it, I'll let you meet someone. You'll soon know that it's useless to deny it. As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his hand, and a person appeared from behind the tree. It was Li Donghai. Mr. Yagyu, what can I do for you? Li Donghai bowed and asked in a flattering manner. Miss Wang said she doesn't know Qin Haodong. Please correct her statement. Don't worry, Mr. Yagyu. The three of us grew up together. There's no mistake. Li Donghai walked up to Wang Rubing and said, Rubing, just admit it. You can't hide it. Wang Rubing finally understood what was going on. It turned out that Li Donghai had been working for the neon people. No wonder he suddenly changed. His purpose was to trick her into going to Milan restaurant, so that the neon people could kidnap her. Li Donghai, you bastard. I'm going to kill you. Although she was tied up tightly, Wang Rubing still roared angrily. Rubing, why are you so excited? Mr. Yagyu said that they won't hurt you. Their target is that bastard Qin Haodong. Mr. Yagyu is very generous. As long as you work hard for them, you'll be rewarded. Bah, get out of here. You traitor, bastard beast. Wang Rubing was so angry that she threw all the dirty words she knew at Li Donghai's face. It turned out that Yagyu Waka had contacted Li Donghai as soon as he arrived in Huaxia, according to Yagyu Jinpakuro's contact information. When Li Donghai offered 1 million yuan as a reward, he immediately agreed to cooperate with him, including kidnapping Wang Rubing to threaten Qin Haodong. It was all planned by him. Li Donghai looked a little embarrassed when he heard such curses. He said, Rubing, how can you do this? We're brother and sister, okay? You're not related to that toy boy Qin at all. Bah. We're brother and sister. How could you kidnap me? Wang Rubing was so angry that her eyes were on fire. How can this be called kidnapping? Mr. Yagyu promised that he wouldn't hurt you, and he'd give you a lot of money after it's done. Think about how much you can earn in a month. A few thousand yuan. Mr. Yagyu's money is enough for you to earn for the rest of your life. Li Donghai, you're really stupid. How dare you believe the neon people? It's good enough that you're still alive. That's impossible. Mr. Yagyu promised me that he would not only give us a lot of money, but also send us to Neon. We'll be Neon citizens in the future. Looking at Li Donghai's face, Wang Rubing suddenly lost interest in talking. This guy didn't have the most basic personality, and he didn't even have a brain. Yagyu Waka said, "Beautiful Miss Wang. What else do you want to say? As long as you cooperate with us, money and nationality are not a problem." Wang Rubing turned her head away. She really didn't want to talk to this guy. At this time, she could only pray in her heart that Qin Haodong wouldn't be fooled by the neon people. Yagyu Waka said, "Miss Wang, it seems that you don't want to cooperate with us." Wang Rubing looked at him coldly and said, "Stop your stupid ideas. Zhao Donghai is willing to be a traitor, but I'm not." "Miss Wang, I really admire your courage." Yagyu Waka sneered and said, "But it won't affect our operation this time even without your cooperation. There's only one result for Qin Haodong today, and that is death." Wang Rubing said, "Don't dream. Even if all the neon people die, my brother won't die. You're really stubborn. I'll let you see how Qin Haodong will be chopped into meat paste by me later." After saying that, Yagyu Waka stretched out his hand to the side. Immediately, a samurai gave him the phone. Wang Rubing knew that this neon person was going to use her to threaten Qin Haodong. She wanted to go forward and grab the phone, but she was tightly tied up and couldn't move at all. Qin Haodong glanced at the phone on the table, and instinctively felt that it had something to do with Wang Rubing. He took a deep breath and answered the phone. At the same time, Chi Weiner took the laptop in her hand, and her fingers moved quickly. She wanted to locate the location of the person in the shortest time possible. "Are you Qin Haodong?" Yagyu Waka said in a stiff tone. "Who are you? Did you kidnap my sister?" "You're really smart. Since you've guessed it, let's make a deal. You bring back the young master of the Yagyu family, and I'll give Miss Wang back to you. What do you think?" Qin Haodong said, "Do I have a choice? But you have to prove that my sister is really in your hands first." Yagyu Waka handed the phone to Wang Rubing and said, "Miss Wang, don't you want to talk to your brother?" Wang Rubing cried into the phone, "Haodong, don't worry about me. They dare not do anything to me." Yagyu Waka took the phone back. He was very satisfied with Wang Rubing's performance. The more she behaved like this, the more likely Qin Haodong would come to save her. He said to the phone, "What do you think? Do you believe me now? If you dare to touch a hair on my sister's head, I promise you'll live a life worse than death." Qin Haodong's voice was piercingly cold. What he hated most was using his family to threaten him. These neon people had touched his bottom line. Yagyu Waka didn't care at all. He said with a sinister smile, "Your sister is really beautiful. You know that I brought the strongest men in neon, so I can only guarantee that Miss Wang will be safe for an hour. After an hour, it's hard to say. So you have to bring the young master to me safely within an hour, or you'll have to bear the consequences." Qin Haodong said, "Tell me your address, and I'll send Yagyu Hirai there right away." He had already sentenced the neon people to death in his heart. They dared to touch his family, and he would definitely make them pay the price. In an hour, 20 kilometers outside the western suburbs of Jiangnan, Yagyu Waka hung up the phone and sat cross-legged in front of Wang Rubing. He held the handle of the katana tightly in his hand. As a superior ninja, he had to adjust his state to the best before every battle. After hanging up the phone, Qin Haodong asked Qi Wan, "Have you confirmed their location? Is it true or not?" "I've already located it. The location of the call is the same as the location of Rubing's phone number. It should be there. Can you find out how many people are coming from Neon this time? How strong are they?" Although he was extremely angry, Qin Haodong was still very rational. He had to know both himself and the enemy. Otherwise, not only could he not save Wang Rubing, but he might also suffer a great loss. Qi Wun'er quickly searched again, and the result came out after 2 minutes. In addition to the normal flights, there was a private plane from Neon to Huaxia this morning. The Neon people who kidnapped Rubing should have taken this plane. How many people? How strong are they? Qin Haodong had already admired Qi Wun'er's hacking skills. Having such a person as a helper saved a lot of trouble. There are 96 people on the plane, but I don't know their specific cultivation or strength. Since the Neon people came prepared, they must have bad intentions. We have to deal with them carefully. 100 people. They really put in a lot of money. Qin Haodong sneered. Since the Neon people dared to provoke him in Huaxia, he would make them pay the price. Immediately inform all the staff of our company to enter the first level of combat readiness, and send someone to replace the Divine Knife mercenaries with Momo, to participate in this battle. Since he did not know the strength of the other side, he had to show his strongest strength. After Qi Wun'er left, Qin Haodong quickly called Hu Shaoxian. Since the other side asked to exchange hostages, he had to get Yagyu Hirai back. The phone was quickly connected. Hu Shaoxian said with a smile, "Little man, you miss me so soon?" Qin Haodong said as fast as he could, "The Neon people kidnapped my sister. Send Yagyu Hirai to Daddy's security company in 10 minutes. I want to exchange hostages." Hu Shaoxian immediately became serious and said, "Don't worry, he will be here in 10 minutes. Qin Haodong hung up the phone. At this time, a harsh alarm sounded in the yard of Daddy's security company. It was the first time that it had been used since the establishment of the company. The members of Daddy's security company were basically battle-hardened special forces. After hearing the alarm, they immediately gathered at the training ground. In less than half a minute, a combat team of 100 people was assembled. Nalan Wushuang rushed to the training ground and saw Qin Haodong looking serious. She asked, "What happened?" Chapter 275. Qin Haodong said, "The Yaguis of Neon sent nearly 100 people to Huaxia and kidnapped my sister. Today, we're going to have a good fight with them." Nalan Wushuang was stunned at first, and then said, "Should I inform Wuxia and ask her to send some special forces?" "No, we're enough." Qin Haodong was confident in the strength of his men. Besides, if the special forces really came, they wouldn't listen to his command. It would be bad if they hurt Wang Rubing. Nalan Wushuang didn't say anything more. She also knew how strong the current Daddy security company was. There were more than a dozen masters of covert power, and the lowest cultivation had reached the 7th level of overt power. Except that they were not equipped with guns, their strength was definitely far beyond the strongest special forces in Huaxia. At this time, Zhang Tiniu quickly ran in front of Qin Haodong and shouted, "Boss, 100 members of Daddy's security company have gathered. Please assign tasks." Qin Haodong took 2 steps forward and said loudly, "Today's task is different from the past. In an hour, we will fight with the Neon warrior who invaded Huaxia. This is not a defense task, nor is it a performance, but a real battle of life and death. You can choose freely. I welcome those who want to participate, and those who don't can quit immediately. Don't feel burdened, and you will still be a member of our company in the future. Now make a voluntary choice. Those who want to participate tonight, stand on my right side, and those who don't, stand on my left side." These people were all veterans who had experienced hundreds of battles. When they heard that they would fight with Neon, there was no fear in their eyes. On the contrary, they were filled with a long-lost excitement. In just 10 seconds, the whole team moved to Qin Haodong's right side, and no one quit. "Well done, Qin Haodong, thank you." Since all the members were willing to participate in the battle, Qin Haodong immediately asked Nalan Wushuang and Qi Wun'er to equip these people, and then called Zhang Tiniu and Chen Fugui to discuss the battle plan. Both of them had served as senior commanders, and they were much better at commanding than Qin Haodong. 5 minutes later, all the members of Daddy's security company were divided into 2 combat teams. Nalan Wushuang and Zhang Tinia led one team to outflank the Neon people from the east, and Qi Wen'er and Chen Fugui led the other team to outflank the Neon people from the west. After Qin Haodong rescued the hostages, they would immediately attack. The overall goal was not to let any Neon people escape. Soon, everyone set off, leaving only a few team members and Qin Haodong in the company. At this time 2 cars drove in quickly. The one in front was the 6 members of the Divine Mercenaries, and the one behind was Hu Shaoxian, who was carrying Yagyu Hirai, who had lost his human form. "Boss, we're here." Saber came to Qin Haodong with 6 people. Knowing that there would be a tough battle tonight, his eyes were full of excitement. Qin Haodong waved his hand and asked the 6 of them to stand aside. Then, he pointed to Yagyu Hirai and said to Hu Shaoxian, "How can I exchange hostages when he's like this?" If the Neon people saw Yagyu Hirai's miserable appearance at this time, they would immediately go berserk and kill Wang Rubing to vent their anger. "There's no other way. This guy is very stubborn. It's inevitable to use some means," Hu Shaoxian said awkwardly. "Aren't you a doctor? Can't you just treat him?" At this point there was no other way. Qin Haodong glanced at the 6 people of the Divine Mercenaries and said to Sword, "You take this guy and follow me." After that, he took the lead and walked into the medical room next to him. Sword followed him with Yagyu Hirai. In the small valley, a neon warrior came to Yagyu Waka's side. 2 cherry blossoms were embroidered on his collar. It was Yagyu Yoshida. "Sir, the time you said is coming. I don't know if that guy from Huaxia dares to come." Yagyu Waka held his saber and said he will. "According to the information we have in the past, that guy is very arrogant. He will definitely come to save people." Yagyu Yoshida glanced at Wang Rubing, who was next to him, with a touch of lust in his eyes. He said with a dirty look, "Sir, this Huaxia woman is really beautiful. Do you really want to give her back to the Huaxia people?" "Yoshida, don't forget our task. Before we exchange the young master, no one should have any ideas about her." Then a playful smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "But after the hostage exchange, it's up to you. We brought so many people with us. We can't let that guy from Huaxia run back. He must die, and this woman will be rewarded to our most valiant warrior." It was no wonder that Yagyu Waka was so confident. On this trip to Huaxia, they had brought a total of 1 Sanhua ninja, 2 Sanhua ninjas, 2 Sanhua ninjas, 40 intermediate ninjas, and 50 low-level ninjas. This lineup was beyond imagination. There was no reason for them to fail. "I understand, sir. In the words of the Huaxia people, as long as they come, they will be in our pocket." After Yagyu Yoshida said that, the 2 of them laughed arrogantly together. Wang Rubing looked at them with anger in her eyes. Unfortunately, she was tied up like a dumpling. She could do nothing but keep cursing the ancestors of the 2 Neon people in her heart. After laughing, Yagyu Waka said, "It's almost time. Have you arranged everyone?" Yagyu Yoshida said, "Yes, we have. We have 50 low-level ninjas on the periphery, 40 middle-level ninjas in the middle, and 6 top-level ninjas in the core. In front of such a powerful force, that guy from Huaxia can never escape unless he is an immortal." Hearing the conversation between the 2 people, Wang Rubing's eyes flashed with despair. Although she knew that her brother had some skills, there were nearly 100 Neon people in front of them. No matter how powerful Qin Haodong was, he could not fight against 100 Neon people alone. Yagyu Waka glanced at Wang Rubing and said proudly, "It won't be long before you see how our Neon warriors cut your brother in half with a knife." They were proud and disappointed at the same time, but they all forgot that no one had said that Qin Haodong was fighting alone. At this time, Chen Fugui and Zhang Tinyu had surrounded the small valley with their people. Every member of the Daddy Security Mercenary Group used to be excellent soldiers, and later they were promoted to warriors. The lowest cultivation had reached the 7th level of the overt power. Such a team showed their super strength. Their movements were extremely fast and silent. Moreover, as the best mercenary group in Jiangnan City, Nalan Wushuang bought the world's top equipment for everyone. Not only was the equipment good for attack, but it also had night vision equipment and wireless communication equipment. When Yagyu Yoshida made the arrangement, he put the focus of all the neon warriors in the center of the small valley. As soon as Qin Haodong returned Yagyu Hirai, they would immediately attack and kill him. It was a completely strategic offensive formation. This arrangement made it convenient for Zhang Tiniu and Chen Fugui, and they surrounded them from outside. After everything was arranged, Zhang Tiniu, Chen Fugui, Nalan Wushuang and Qi Wana had a meeting in a small cave. Zhang Tiniu said, "I just scanned the valley with an infrared scanner. There are 98 people in the valley. One of them is Miss Wang Rubing, and the other 97 should be neon warriors." Qi Wana said, "I just went in and checked. Their encirclement is set up according to the form of heavy inside and light outside. The outermost warriors have the lowest cultivation. All of them are below the 6th level of the overt power, about half of the total number. Further inside, their cultivation is a little higher, about between the 6th level of the overt power and the 9th level of the overt power. Several neon warriors in the core should have reached the level of the covert power. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, I dare not get too close." Nalan Wushuang said, "Overall, their comprehensive strength is not as good as ours. It's not a problem to kill all these little neon warriors. The most important thing now is how to ensure the safety of Rubing." Chen Fugui said, "We can only do the preparation work now. Don't act rashly. When we see the boss rescue Miss Rubing, we will immediately launch a thunderous attack and wipe out these little devils in one fell swoop." Zhang Tiniu said, "In order to maximize the efficiency of the attack and minimize the casualties, we can distribute the personnel. The number of people on both sides is about the same." Later, we will assign the tasks according to the method of Tianji's horse race. There are about 50 people on our side, who have reached the 7th level of the overt power, and the 8th level of the overt power. Let each of them choose a low-level neon warrior as the target to attack. We will lead the warriors whose cultivation is above the 9th level of the overt power to choose a middle-level neon warrior as the target. The advantage of this is that everyone has a specific target, and they will maintain an absolute advantage in cultivation. Once they take action, they can kill the other party in seconds. When the periphery is cleared, there are only a few neon warriors at the level of the covert power in the core. They can't make any trouble. Nalan Wushuang nodded and said, "That's a good idea. Let's go back and prepare immediately. But we must pay attention to concealment. We must not alert the enemy." After the discussion, they immediately went back to take people to do the preparation work. They were waiting for Qin Haodong to come and launch a thunderous attack. Time passed. When it was the appointed time, there was a roar of motor vehicles outside the valley. Soon, 2 SUVs stopped at the entrance of the valley. Qin Haodong and Hu Shaoxian walked into the valley side by side. Behind them, the divine mercenaries were suppressing Yagyu Hirai. After seeing Qin Haodong, Wang Rubing immediately shouted, "Haodong, run! There are so many of them. This is a trap. You can't save me at all." Li Donghai hurriedly shouted, "Don't shout. What are you shouting for? If Qin Haodong really runs away, we will all be finished." As he said that, he reached out to cover Wang Rubing's mouth. Wang Rubing opened her mouth in a hurry and fiercely bit him. She suddenly tore a piece of flesh from his hand, and the bite was bloody. Li Donghai screamed and slapped Wang Rubing in the face. "You bitch, how dare you bite me? Do you want to die?" Seeing him, Qin Haodong immediately understood what had happened. He must have betrayed Wang Rubing and let the neon people use her as a hostage. At this time, seeing him hit Wang Rubing again, Qin Haodong's anger had reached its peak. "Li Donghai, you are worse than pigs and dogs. You must die." Li Donghai shouted arrogantly while covering the wound on his hand. "Qin Haodong, you are about to die. You will not have a good end if you offend Mr. Yagyu. Let's see what you can do to me in the future." He had just heard the conversation between Yagyu Waka and Yagyu Yoshida. In his eyes, Qin Haodong was already a dead man, so his expression was extremely arrogant. "Then let's see who will have a good end," Qin Haodong said, and turned to look at the neon people in front of him. "Who is the boss? Stand up." Yagyuwaka stepped forward and said, Huaxia man, you are very brave. I am Yagyuwaka, the superior ninja of Neon, the leader of this trip to Huaxia. Qin Haodong sneered. Yagyuwaka, right? I want him dead. Can you? As he said that, he raised his hand and pointed at Li Donghai. Chapter 276. After hearing Qin Haodong's words, Li Donghai laughed and said, Qin Haodong, are you out of your mind? You're Mr. Yagyu's enemy, and I'm his friend. It's ridiculous that you want Mr. Yagyu to kill me. Yagyu Yoshida looked at Li Donghai and said, You're wrong. You're just a dog of our people. You're not a friend at all. Li Donghai's expression froze and he said embarrassedly, You're right. I'm a dog. Since you're a dog, you should have the consciousness of a dog. Go to hell. Yagyu Yoshida said as he pulled out the sword from his waist. Li Donghai suddenly turned pale with fright. He knelt on the ground and begged, Mr. Yagyu, I'm your dog. Please don't kill me. Before he could finish speaking, Yagyu Yoshida's sword had already swept across his neck. Li Donghai died on the spot before he could even scream. His blood sprayed all over the ground. Although Wang Rubing hated Li Donghai, she couldn't help but tremble and retch when she saw such a cruel scene. Mr. Qin, what do you think? Are you satisfied? Yagyuwaka looked at Qin Haodong and said with a smile. In his eyes, Li Donghai was just a dog that could be used. Since he had been used, the dog had lost its value. Killing him could save him 500,000 yuan. Qin Haodong looked at Li Donghai's body, and his anger finally subsided a little. This guy had crossed his bottom line again and again. Today, he had even betrayed Wang Rubing to the Neon people. If it weren't for Li Xiaotian, he would have killed Li Donghai. Today Li Donghai died in the hands of the Neon people, which was what he deserved for being a traitor. He glanced at Yagyuwaka and said, Let go of my sister, and I'll give you Yagyu Hirai. Yagyuwaka looked at Yagyu Hirai behind Qin Haodong and said, Mr. Qin, as you can see, I treated Miss Wang very well. I didn't let her get hurt. If you want to exchange hostages, you have to let me check the young master's physical condition to see if he's injured. That's the only way to make a fair exchange. Hu Xiaoxian smiled and said, Mr. Yagyu, isn't it a little inappropriate for you to do this? What if we give you the hostage first, and then you don't release our hostage? Yagyu Kazuaki said, That's impossible. The most important thing for us Japanese warriors is credibility. Since we've promised to release Miss Wang, we'll definitely hand her over to you. Credibility is the most important. She pointed at Li Donghai's body and said, It's so funny. Mr. Six Lives. Is this what you mean by the most trustworthy? Yagyuwaka said, It's different. We agreed with him that we would give him 500,000 yuan, and he would help us kidnap Miss Wang here. We've already completed the deal, and the money has been transferred to his card. I've never said that I won't kill him, so I'm not breaking my promise. Hu Xiaoxian said, I've seen shameless people, but I've never seen such a shameless person. Mr. Yagyu, you've really opened my eyes. Faced with Hu Xiaoxian's sarcasm, Yagyuwaka did not care at all. He said, Miss, do you disagree with my proposal? Of course not. Hu Xiaoxian said, We Huaxia people have always said that money and goods are exchanged. It's the same with exchanging hostages. It's only fair that we release the hostages at the same time. That won't do. You must do as I say. Yagyuwaka's voice was not loud, but his tone was extremely tough. Hu Xiaoxian smiled and said, What if we disagree? It's easy to disagree. Miss Wang is a great beauty anyway. Everyone wants to see what she looks like when she takes off her clothes. If you don't send the young master here right now, I'll strip her immediately. Then, Yagyuwaka grabbed Wang Rubing in his hand and raised his hand to pull off the rope on her body. Hu Xiaoxian suddenly became furious. How dare you? If you dare to touch Rubing, I'll immediately cut off your bulsh *T young master. She raised her hand and put the purple flash sword on Yagyu Hirai's neck. Yagyuwaka was unmoved. He sneered and said, You're the one who doesn't dare. If you really kill the young master, you'll all be buried here with him. Besides, Miss Wang is not your sister. What you say doesn't count. He turned to look at Qin Haodong and said, I'll give you one last chance. I'll count from 3 to 1. If you don't let her go, everyone will appreciate your sister's naked appearance. Wang Rubing struggled desperately, but she was firmly controlled by Yagyu Waka. She didn't want to be humiliated, nor did she want to be a weight to restrict Qin Haodong. She screamed loudly, Haodong, kill me quickly. Qin Haodong's face was livid. He said to Saber beside him, let her go. Hu Shaoxian cried, you're crazy. We can't let her go. If we really let the hostages go, what if they don't let Rubing go? Yagyu Waka seemed to enjoy watching Qin Haodong and the others fight. He smiled and began to count. 3, 2. When there was only the last number, Qin Haodong stepped forward and pushed Hu Shaoxian away. He directly pushed Yagyu Hirai to Yagyu Waka's side. Young master, are you all right? Yagyu Yoshida supported Yagyu Hirai, who was staggering, and lifted his hand to remove the towel in his mouth. Hu Shaoxian cried, we've already let her go. Now it's your turn. Yagyu Yoshida laughed and said, you Huaxia people are really stupid. You know that I don't keep my word, but you still dare to believe me. This task is too simple. There's no need to use so many neon warriors to deal with idiots like you. It's really a waste. After laughing, his expression became cold, and he said proudly, how dare you disrespect the young master of the Yagyu family? None of you will live. All of you will die. Then he raised his right hand and shouted to the neon warriors behind him, warriors, come out. Kill all of these Huaxia people. According to the previous agreement, as long as he raised his right hand, all the neon warriors would kill Qin Haodong and the others together. At the same time, Qin Haodong also shouted, do it! Zhang Tiniu and Chen Fugui were hesitating about whether to launch an attack when they saw that Wang Rubing had not been rescued. After hearing Qin Haodong's order, they immediately launched a general attack according to the previous plan. The people of Daddy Security Company had already chosen their targets. After receiving the order, they immediately rushed forward. Each of the targets they chose was originally one level lower than the Neon Warriors. In addition, the Neon Warriors did not know that there were people hiding behind them. Under such circumstances, the attack was carried out very smoothly. In the blink of an eye, 90 Neon Ninjas were killed. Except for a few superior ninjas, all of them were wiped out. Baka, Yagyu Waka and the others turned pale with fright. They had never dreamed that Qin Haodong's men would be so powerful. In just a breath, nearly 100 of his men were killed. It should be known that these were nearly half of the Yagyu family's strength. They were ninjas who had been carefully trained. Qin Haodong sneered and said, what do you mean by 8 or 9? Hurry up and let my sister go, or you will all die. Qin Haodong, don't forget that your sister is still in our hands. Yagyu Yoshida was in a panic. He reached out to grab Wang Rubing. As long as this woman was in his hands, they still had a chance to leave alive. Unexpectedly, as soon as his right hand touched Wang Rubing's clothes, a cold light suddenly flashed next to him. His right hand was cut off by a knife and fell to the ground with a plop. Yagyu Yoshida screamed and turned his head to the side. He saw that it was Yagyu Hirai who had just been rescued. After Yagyu Hirai succeeded, he immediately held Wang Rubing tightly and rushed to Qin Haodong's side. Although Wang Rubing did not understand what had happened, she immediately rushed to Qin Haodong's side and cried when she saw him. She was really scared this time. Seeing that the hostages were saved, the people of Daddy's security mercenary group immediately surrounded Yagyu Waka and the others. They were waiting for Qin Haodong's order to immediately kill these neon people. Seeing that Yagyu Hirai had cut off Yagyu Yoshida's arm, Yagyu Waka said angrily, young master, are you crazy? How could you do this to your own people? Yagyu Hirai raised his hand to wipe his face and smiled at Yagyu Waka, revealing his white teeth. Let me introduce myself. I'm a 9th class bodyguard from Daddy's Security Company. I'm not your *T young master. Yagyu Waka realized that he had been fooled. He said angrily to Qin Haodong, Huaxia man, you're too cunning. How dare you deceive us with a fake one? Hu Shaoxian spat at the old man and said, Where's your shame? Where's your shame? As a senior warrior, you came to Huaxia to kidnap a woman. You didn't keep your word, and even dared to question others. It turned out that Qin Haodong saw that Yagyu Hirai was injured all over, and had lost an arm. It was really difficult to exchange him for a hostage. He found that Sword's body shape was very similar to Yagyu Hirai's. So he used the disguise skill to change Sword's appearance and pretend to be Yagyu Hirai. Hu Shaoxian knew all this. She had just played along with Qin Haodong. That was why he had agreed to Yagyu Waka's condition, and asked Sword to save Wang Rubing. Yagyu Waka pulled out his sword and shouted again. Where's our young master? Did you kill him? Qin Haodong sneered and said, You're about to die. Go to the king of hell first. Your young master will be there soon. Then he waved his hand and shouted to his men, Send them to hell. Qin Haodong's side had 13 masters at the covert power level, not to mention the low-level warriors. Yagyu Waka's side only had 6 superior ninjas. At this time, Yagyu Yoshida had lost an arm and completely lost his fighting power. The strength of the two sides could be imagined. But at this moment, there was a roar in the air. Stop! No one had expected that there would be someone hiding on the top of the tree. Everyone looked up and saw a black shadow slowly descending from the night sky, and standing next to Yagyu Waka. It was a thin old man from Neon. His face was full of wrinkles, and only a few strands of hair were left. He carried a sword on his back. He looked weak, but his momentum was amazing. Feeling the strong momentum of the old man, Hu Shaoxian and the others stepped back in horror. Judging from his momentum, this old man had at least reached the 9th level of the covert power, or had entered the threshold of the supreme power realm. They didn't expect that the Yagyu family would send such a strong man to Huaxia. First Elder, you're here. Yagyu Waka was surprised to see the old man, like a drowning man who had found a life-saving straw. This old man was the first elder of the Yagyu family, Yagyu Ken, a strong man who had reached the peak of the 9th level of the covert power, and had even entered the threshold of the supreme power realm. Bastard! Useless! Yagyu Ken raised his hand and slapped Yagyu Waka's face. What are you doing? So many elites of the Yagyu family died in your hands. Yagyu Waka didn't move. He took the 2 slaps and then said, First Elder, please avenge the warriors of our family. Chapter 277. Yagyu Ken glared at Yagyu Waka, and turned to look at Qin Haodong. It turned out that Yagyu Shinji had felt a little unsafe after sending Yagyu Waka and the others to Huaxia. If something happened to them, the Yagyu family would suffer a disastrous decline. After much hesitation, he had also sent Yagyu Ken, the first elder. Yagyu Ken had always been arrogant. He thought that it was unnecessary for Yagyu Shinji to send him to Huaxia to deal with a college student. So he had never shown up. He had been secretly protecting Yagyu Waka and the others. After arriving at the small valley, he had hidden in a tree. In his opinion, there was no doubt that Yagyu Waka and the others would win. So he had been hiding. Because of this, he had not noticed Chen Fugue and Zhang Tinyu, who had begun to surround them outside the valley. Unexpectedly, the situation had taken a turn for the worse. In the blink of an eye, almost all the people sent by the Yagyu family had been wiped out. He then jumped down from the tree. The main purpose of coming to Huaxia this time was to save Yagyu Hirai. Now that almost all of them were dead, if Yagyu Hirai could not be saved, he would really have no face to go back to see Yagyu Shinji. He said in a cold voice, Huaxia people, hand over the young master, or all of you will die. Hu Shaoxian said unconvinced, You're talking big. We won't hand him over. What can you do? Then I'll show you. Yagyu Ken's face turned cold. He raised his hand and punched Hu Shaoxian. His punch looked light, and he didn't use much of his strength. However, his dry fist brought with it a sharp sound of breaking through the air. The huge fist wind caused the people around him to retreat again and again. Hu Shaoxian's expression changed greatly. She quickly raised her hand and punched him. The 2 fists collided, making a muffled sound and sweeping the grass and leaves in the valley. After one move, Hu Shaoxian was directly shaken more than 10 meters away. Although her cultivation had recently improved greatly, she was only at the 5th level of the covert power. The old guy was a real half-step to the supreme power realm. There were more than 4 levels between them. Qin Haodong quickly caught Hu Shaoxian, who was falling rapidly. He used the greenwood genuine qi to help her sort out her shaken and messy meridians. Fortunately, he had acted in time. Otherwise, Hu Shaoxian would have spat out a mouthful of blood. Qin Haodong seemed to have sensed the power of Yagyu Ken, so he hurriedly said to the crowd, "Retreat! Everyone retreat!" Hearing his order, Nalan Wushuang, Qi Wan and the others all stepped back. They were more than 10 meters away from Yagyu Ken and the others. Yagyu Ken sneered and said, "So? Have you had a taste of this old man's power? Hurry up and hand over the young master, or else all of you will die." Qin Haodong said, "Although your cultivation is high enough, there are many of us. If we really fight to the death, your Yagyu family won't get any benefits. I'm afraid everyone will die except you." Yagyu Waka said, "So be it. There's nothing to be afraid of. The warriors of our country have always been fearless of death." Yagyu Ken said coldly, "Huaxia man, you'd better hand over the young master. I don't want to kill anyone at my age." Qin Haodong hesitated for a moment. Then he turned around and said to Saber, "Bring him up." Saber took several people back to the off-road vehicle behind him and dragged a man out of the trunk. This time, it was the real Yagyu Hirai. Yagyu Hirai's body was covered with wounds and his spirit was exhausted. He was as miserable as he could be. Upon seeing Yagyu Ken, his dim eyes finally lit up. He opened his mouth to say something, but in the end, he could not make a sound. "Bastard! How dare you treat our young master like this?" Yagyu Ken was furious. Yagyu Hirai had grown up with him and was almost like his grandson. He had never thought that one day he would be so miserable. "What's the fuss about? I'll give him back to you," Qin Haodong said as he grabbed Yagyu Hirai's belt. With a shake of his wrist, Yagyu Hirai flew toward Yagyu Ken like a high-speed cannonball. Yagyu Ken quickly raised his hands and gently caught Yagyu Hirai's body. However, his hand happened to grab Yagyu Hirai's shoulder, which had been smashed into several pieces. Yagyu Hirai suddenly howled in pain. "Bastard!" Yagyu Ken also noticed the injury on Yagyu Hirai's arm. He cursed and reached out to hold the other arm. Unexpectedly, this arm was worse than the broken one. It fell with a crack. He was shocked to find that this arm was fake. Yagyu Hirai's original arm had been cut off. "Bastard!" Yagyu Ken roared angrily and threw the fake arm to the ground. Then, he suddenly pulled out the Japanese knife from his waist, pointed it at Qin Haodong and shouted, "How dare you humiliate the young master of the Yagyu family like this? You must die today." Qin Haodong smiled faintly. "Old man, you think too much. This is Huaxia. It's not your place to be so arrogant." Yagyu Ken shouted to the others, "You can all go. I only want his life." Although he was angry, he still had basic reason. He had reached the half-step to the supreme power realm, but there were too many Huaxia people on the other side, including many masters. If he really fought to the death, no one on the Neon side would survive except for him. These were all elites of the Yagyu family. They could not die anymore. That was why he wanted to scare Hu Shaoxian and the others away and kill Qin Haodong alone. Unexpectedly, Qin Haodong waved his hand and said to the people of Daddy's security company, "Everyone leave." Although Zhang Tinyu and the others were a little hesitant, they were all soldiers. They chose to execute the order without hesitation and began to retreat. Hu Shaoxian also retreated more than 10 meters. Only Qin Haodong was left on the field. Yagyu Ken raised the Japanese knife in his hand high. His momentum suddenly increased as he roared, "Boy, take out your weapon. I'll give you a fair duel." "Idiot." Qin Haodong looked at him and smiled disdainfully. He took out something, but it was not a weapon. It was a small and exquisite remote control. Remember, when you reincarnate in your next life, don't always go to Huaxia. This is not a place for you neon dogs. After saying that, he pressed the red button on the remote control and quickly hid behind a big tree. Yagyu-ken was suddenly shocked. An extremely uneasy feeling rose from the depths of his soul. He suddenly shouted, "Run! It's the broken arm." But it was too late. The broken arm of Yagyu Hirai, which had just been thrown to the ground, emitted a dazzling red light. Then there was a loud bang, and the whole valley shook. It was a violent explosion. God knew how many explosives Qin Haodong had put in the broken arm. After the smoke and dust dispersed, a huge pit appeared where Yagyu-ken and the others had been standing. The people of the Yagyu family had been blown to pieces. Yagyu Waka had barely survived by relying on his powerful genuine qi to protect himself. However, he was lying on the ground vomiting blood. Yagyu-ken was in a better condition, but his left arm had been blown away. His pale face was full of flesh and blood from the explosion. Only his right hand was left holding the Japanese knife. As for Yagyu Yoshida and Yagyu Hirai, they had already become mincemeat. Not even a complete body was left. "You bastard!" Yagyu-ken roared desperately after he came to his senses. At this time he was so aggrieved. As a master half a step to the supreme power realm, and a well-known expert in neon, he had been seriously injured before his opponent had even made a move. Nearly 100 of his men had been killed or injured. He had nowhere to vent his anger. At this time, the people of Daddy's security company came back and surrounded them again. Yagyu Waka struggled to get up and touch his Japanese knife. The purple flash sword in Hu Xiaoxian's hand had already pierced his throat, causing a mist of blood. There was an extreme unwillingness in his eyes. The Sanhua ninja of the Yagyu family had been killed just like that. Qin Haodong pulled out the 1,000 blades and smiled at Yagyu-ken. "Old man, didn't you say you wanted to fight with me? Now do it." Yagyu-ken said angrily, "Shameless Huaxia man, how dare you use tricks? Where is the dignity of a warrior?" Qin Haodong sneered and said, "The dignity of a warrior? Didn't you see what you people did in Huaxia? How dare you talk about the dignity of a warrior? Why didn't you talk about the dignity of a warrior when Yagyu Waka kidnapped my sister?" Yagyu-ken's expression froze and he shouted, "Huaxia man, go to hell!" After saying that, he waved the Japanese knife with one hand and fiercely slashed at Qin Haodong. Although he was injured, he was still an expert half a step to the supreme power realm. The attack with all his strength was still extremely fierce. A trace of disdain flashed in Qin Haodong's eyes. He did not dodge at all. The 1,000 blades in his hand directly met the attack. The two knives collided with a clang. The situation after the collision was exactly the opposite of the previous one. Yagyu-ken was sent flying more than 10 meters like a broken sack. He had suffered serious internal injuries in the explosion. At this time, under the surging genuine qi, he spat out a mouthful of blood. After landing on his feet, he directly inserted the Japanese knife into the ground and used it as a crutch. He barely supported his body and did not fall. You are also a half-step to the supreme power realm?" Yagyu-ken looked at the young man in front of him in horror. He had originally thought that the strongest person in Huaxia was Hu Xiaoxian. He did not expect that Qin Haodong's cultivation was no weaker than his. Qin Haodong made a beautiful movement with the 1,000 blades in his hand and said with a smile, "What do you think? Are you surprised?" "Despicable. You are so despicable," Yagyu-ken said angrily. "Since you are such an expert, why don't you challenge me directly?" Qin Haodong said with a smile, "That's good. It saves a lot of trouble. There is a way to save effort. Why do we need to fight and kill? Besides, we Huaxia people are very precious. It would be bad if my men were hurt by you Japanese." Although his current cultivation was a little weaker than Yagyu-ken's, it was still easy for him to defeat Yagyu-ken with the superior cultivation methods and endless means he had practiced. However, it was easy to defeat Yagyu-ken. It would be difficult to kill Yagyu-ken. Maybe he would run back to Huaxia and leave a big problem. Before coming here, he had made a fake arm for Yagyu Hirai and filled it with C4 explosives brought by Hu Xiaoxian, just in case. At first, he thought he would not need it. He did not expect that Yagyu-ken would appear out of nowhere and put the explosives to good use. "Despicable Huaxia man, Just you wait. You will not have a good end if you offend our Yagyu family. After saying that, Yagyu-kin jumped into the air and rushed to a big tree next to him. At this time, he had found that he was no match for Qin Haodong, so he chose to run away. You want to run away when you can't beat me? Where is your dignity as a warrior? A light flashed in Qin Haodong's hand, and the 1,000 blades directly shot out. Yagyu-kin was in the air, so it was too late for him to dodge. The 1,000 blades directly pierced his back. Yagyu-kin fell heavily to the ground, stirring up a cloud of dust. At this point, the great elder of the Yagyu family, a famous expert half a step to the supreme power realm in Neon, had died in the valley. The 96 elites of the Yagyu family who had come to Huaxia had all been wiped out. Chapter 278. Seeing that Yagyu-kin was dead, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. If the old man with such a high cultivation had escaped, it would have been a big problem. However, some people were not satisfied. Zhang Tinyu said, "These Japanese were too weak. I thought we could have a good fight, but it ended so soon." Qin Haodong said, "Isn't this the best result? Do you want to fight with Yagyu-kin? I should have given you the opportunity." "Forget it. I haven't lived long enough." Zhang Tinyu was so scared that he shrank his neck. He was a fighter, but that didn't mean he was stupid. 10 people like him were no match for a master like Yagyu-kin. The people present burst into laughter. Qin Haodong said, "Today is a perfect battle. All the Neon people were killed, and no one from our daddy's security company was injured. This is the result we want. This is the most proud result." Everyone cheered. Although they didn't feel satisfied, they knew what Qin Haodong said made sense. "Well, everyone go back. Everyone will get 10,000 yuan for drinking tonight." Qin Haodong waved his hand and asked Zhang Tinyu and Chen Fugui to retreat. The divine mercenaries returned to Lin Momo's place and escorted Wang Rubing home. Nalan Wushuang asked, "Haodong, what should we do here?" The small valley was full of dead bodies, so they had to deal with it. Qin Haodong said, "Leave it to Xiaoxian. We don't need to worry about it." So many Japanese warriors came to Huaxia, which was not a small matter. It was best to leave it to the special department. "I can take care of it, but I did you a big favor tonight. Remember to repay me in the future." Hu Xiaoxian looked at Qin Haodong charmingly. Then she hugged his neck and kissed him on the cheek. Ignoring Qin Haodong's embarrassment, she whispered in his ear, "Little man, I can't make it up to you today. I have to go back to the capital to explain such a big thing. It's all your fault that you always make trouble for me." Seeing Nalan Wushuang and Qi Wen'er's murderous eyes, Qin Haodong quickly said, "It's okay. I'll leave it to you." Then he turned around and ran, followed by Nalan Wushuang and Qi Wen'er. Looking at Qin Haodong's fleeing figure, Hu Xiaoxian giggled and murmured, "This little man is quite good at seducing girls." She had long seen through Nalan Wushuang and Qi Wen'er's feelings for Qin Haodong. The reason why she behaved so intimately was also to declare her sovereignty. After walking out of the valley, Nalan Wushuang and Qi Wen'er held Qin Haodong's arms and asked, "When did you hook up with Hu Xiaoxian?" Qin Haodong said embarrassedly, "What do you mean? Don't make it sound so bad. We're just friends." "Ordinary friends? When did ordinary friends become so open? Since friends can do this, let's do it too." As the two girls spoke, they kissed his cheeks from both sides. In the villa of the Yagyu family in Neon, Yagyu Shinji sat there all night with his sword in his arms. Early the next morning, the door opened, and a young woman in a neon samurai uniform came in. She was Yagyu Shinji's daughter and Yagyu Hirai's sister, Yagyu Yukaim. Seeing his daughter come in, Yagyu Shinji asked, "Is there any news from the first elder?" Yagyu Yukaim shook her head and said, "No news at all. Everyone has lost contact." Yagyu Shinji seemed to have aged more than 10 years in an instant. Nearly 100 people had been sent to Huaxia, and they had all lost contact with them for such a long time. After a while he murmured, "How much strength is Huaxia hiding? They actually killed nearly 100 elites of our Yagyu family. Yagyu Yukaim said, Father, do you think it's possible that Huaxia has sent the elites of the Xianyuan pavilion? Yagyu Shinji shook his head and said, It's unlikely. Although the Xianyuan pavilion is powerful, they have too many things to do. It's impossible for them to concentrate so much energy to deal with our Yagyu family at once. Moreover, with the first elder's cultivation, even if Huaxia sends a supreme power expert, he can still escape. It's impossible for him to disappear silently. What the hell is going on? Why don't I take people to Huaxia again? I don't believe that there are so many strong people in Huaxia. As Yagyu Yukaim spoke, she exuded a powerful momentum. She was an expert at the 9th level of the covert power. She was known as the rare martial arts genius of the Yagyu family in 100 years. If she had not been a woman, Yagyu Hirai would not have been the heir of the family. No, we can't go again. Before our Yagyu family recovers, we are not allowed to step into Huaxia. Yagyu Shinji immediately stopped Yagyu Yukaim and said with great difficulty, Our Yagyu family has lost nearly half of our strength. We can't afford any more blows. What we have to do now is to quickly withdraw our strength and try our best to keep the news. Once the news spreads, I don't know how many people are waiting to eat the fat meat of our Yagyu family. The Yagyu family was a new force that had risen in recent years. It relied on powerful force, but now it had lost so many elites. Even with Yagyu Shinji, a supreme power expert, it was still difficult to suppress the covetous hearts of other families. Father, are we just going to endure it and do nothing? It's not that we don't want to do anything, but we have to do what we should do at the moment. Yagyu Shinji glanced at Yagyu Yukaim and said, The most important thing for you now is to make a breakthrough in your cultivation. As long as you step into the threshold of the supreme power realm, our Yagyu family will have 2 supreme power experts. It won't be too late to settle accounts with Huaxia people then. What about my brother? Yagyu Yukaim asked. We can only leave his life and death to fate. It depends on whether he has the luck to survive. We can't sacrifice our entire Yagyu family for him alone. I know, Father, Yagyu Yukaim said with a lonely expression. Although she was extremely unwilling, she knew that her father was right. She could only accept this reality. Yagyu Shinji said again, Recently, send more intelligence personnel to Huaxia to collect as much information as possible. Once we find the right opportunity, we still have to take revenge. Father, didn't you say that it's not suitable for us to go to Huaxia? Yagyu Yukaim asked in surprise. It's true that we can't go to Huaxia anymore. Their strength is unfathomable. But it doesn't mean that Qin Haodong won't come out. Once he leaves Huaxia, it will be our chance to take revenge. I know, Father. Yagyu Yukaim bowed, turned around and left the room. At 9:00 a.m., in the conference room of Jiangnan Lin's group, President Lin Momo hosted a press conference for the official establishment of Tangmin Traditional Chinese Medicine Company. Qin Haodong and Lin Momo sat together on the rostrum. The stage was densely packed with people. Some were media reporters who had heard the news, and some were leukemia patients. After these people had failed to buy the blood revival oral liquid everywhere, they immediately turned their attention to the establishment of Tangmin Traditional Chinese Medicine Company. It was said that as long as the blood revival oral liquid was produced by Tangmin Traditional Chinese Medicine Company, their disease would immediately have hope. After the press conference began, Lin Momo officially announced the official establishment of Tangmin Traditional Chinese Medicine Company and began to accept interviews from major media. A reporter took the lead and asked, President Lin, I would like to ask who the boss behind Tangmin Traditional Chinese Medicine Company is. Who is in charge of the management? Tangmin Traditional Chinese Medicine Company is a formal cooperation between Lin's group and Mr. Qin. Naturally, the company is jointly owned by Mr. Qin and Lin's group. I will still be the president of the company. President Lin, what is the ratio of shares held by Lin's group and Mr. Qin? Can you tell me? Lin Momo smiled and said, This is a trade secret. Please forgive me for not being able to tell you. Miss Lin, on behalf of the 4 million leukemia patients in Huaxia, When will Tangmin Traditional Chinese Medicine Company enter official quantitative production? When will the product come out? Lin Momo said, I can't give you an exact time. I can only say that it will be done as soon as possible, because it takes a process from approval to production. Tangmin Traditional Chinese Medicine Company will do its best to shorten this process as much as possible. President Lin, what kind of medicine will Tangmin Traditional Chinese Medicine Company produce after its establishment? The blood revival oral liquid isn't the only medicine, right? Lin Momo said, at present, there is only one kind of medicine. There will be other heavyweight medicines in the future, but one thing is for sure. We will produce traditional Chinese medicine. President Lin, why does your pharmaceutical company only produce traditional Chinese medicine? Is it discrimination against Western medicine? Lin Momo was very experienced in dealing with the media. Even though the reporter's question was very tricky, she still looked calm. Reporter, I would like to ask why you are only a reporter and not a teacher. Is it discrimination against the teaching profession? As soon as she said this, there was a burst of laughter in the venue. The reporter looked embarrassed and couldn't speak for a while. Lin Momo continued to say, we are Tangmin Traditional Chinese Medicine Company. If you ask a traditional Chinese medicine company to produce Western medicine, it will be like asking a man to give birth to a child. This is not a matter of discrimination. It is completely unreasonable. After that, many reporters asked a few more questions in succession. However, Lin Momo's answers were well-founded, so they couldn't get what they wanted at all. They immediately pointed their guns at Qin Haodong next to her. Mr. Qin, I would like to ask if the blood revival oral liquid you developed is really effective for leukemia? Are there any side effects? Qin Haodong said, at present, 100 leukemia patients have taken the blood revival oral liquid. The cure rate is 100%, and there are no side effects. Mr. Qin, what will be the production price of the blood revival oral liquid after it is quantified? Will it be sold at a sky-high price like other leukemia drugs? Qin Haodong said, I am a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner. I cured 2 children with leukemia in succession. Later, I learned that there were more than 4 million leukemia patients in Huaxia. I couldn't cure them by myself, so I wanted to develop a medicine to help all leukemia patients relieve their pain. Later, I combined the ancient prescriptions of traditional Chinese medicine and developed the blood revival oral liquid. It turned out that the effect of this medicine was very good. The reporter seemed to be a little impatient. He asked again, Mr. Qin, you haven't answered my question directly. The blood revival oral liquid works, but what will the price be? Qin Haodong said with a smile. In fact, I have already answered the question. The purpose of the production of the blood revival oral liquid is to help leukemia patients relieve their pain. Naturally, the price will not be high. It is initially estimated to be about double our production cost. I don't know the specific price, but I can guarantee that it will be at least 3 digits. 3 digits? Oh my god, it's less than 1,000 yuan. It's much cheaper than Baikong Sting. It's not comparable at all. The blood revival oral liquid is a one-time cure, while Baikong Sting only alleviates the disease. It costs 30,000 yuan a month. At this time, another reporter asked, Mr. Qin, you know that leukemia is currently an incurable disease in the world. Will the blood revival oral liquid give priority to the Huaxia market, or will it be sold abroad to earn foreign exchange? Chapter 279. After the reporter asked the question, everyone's eyes were focused on Qin Haodong. Nowadays, there was a strange phenomenon in Huaxia. Many good things were given priority to foreign countries. Not only were the prices cheaper, but the quality was also much better. No one knew if Tangmin Traditional Chinese Medicine Company would get out of this strange circle. Those patients with leukemia were especially concerned about this issue. After all, The production capacity of Tangmin Traditional Chinese Medicine Company was not clear. If the medicine was given priority to foreign countries, many patients in Huaxia might not be able to wait for the medicine to come on the market. Qin Haodong said, I want to emphasize 2 points about this issue. First, the reason why I developed the Blood Revival Oral Liquid and established Tangmin Traditional Chinese Medicine Company is for our 4 million compatriots with leukemia in Huaxia. The medicine I produce will be sold all over the world, but the premise is that it will be given priority in Huaxia. Second, after the production of the Blood Revival Oral Liquid, the domestic and foreign sales prices will be completely different. The foreign sales prices will be 100 times higher than the domestic sales prices. After hearing this answer, the audience was excited. No one had expected Qin Haodong's answer to be so powerful. No company in Huaxia had ever said that the foreign sales prices would be 100 times higher than the domestic sales prices. Those who could sell at a low price were all companies with conscience. Long live Dr. Qin. Dr. Qin, we love you. You are our great benefactor. Many leukemia patients shouted Qin Haodong's name excitedly. Some of them had tears in their eyes. In recent years, they had been fed up with the high prices of foreign drugs. Finally, they had welcomed their own companies with conscience. The reporters finally got what they wanted, and the cameras in their hands flashed nonstop. At this moment, a stiff voice sounded, Mr. Qin, I don't think it's right for you to do this. The venue immediately quieted down. Everyone looked in the direction of the voice and saw that it was a bearded white foreigner. There were too many people attending the press conference that day, so no one noticed that there was a foreigner in the corner. The bearded foreigner said excitedly, Dr. Qin, I'm Enrique, a reporter from the Health Daily of M Country. As a doctor, I don't think you should make racial discrimination and international differences. You should treat patients in Huaxia and patients from other countries equally. You shouldn't raise the price of the medicine sold abroad 100 times higher than that sold in Huaxia. Qin Haodong looked at the foreigner and said, Mr. Enrique, let me ask you a question first. What is the sales price of Baikong Sting, a famous drug for treating leukemia, in M Country? What's the selling price in China? Enrique's mood immediately changed from anger to embarrassment. Finally, he said, the price of Baikong Sting in Huaxia is 24,000 to 30,000 yuan, and the price in M Country is about $100. Although many people knew this secret, when Enrique revealed it, there was still an uproar in the venue, especially among the leukemia patients. Some people had already begun to curse. Qin Haodong waved his hand and motioned for everyone to calm down. Then he said to Enrique, Mr. Enrique, have you ever suggested that patients in M Country should be treated the same as those in Huaxia? Have you suggested lowering the price of medicines in Huaxia? Enrique blushed and was too embarrassed to say anything. Qin Haodong added, there is an old saying in Huaxia that goes, do not do unto others what you do not want done to yourself. M Country has always sold drugs to Huaxia at a higher price than your own, so you have no right to ask us to treat you equally. Moreover, traditional Chinese medicine belongs to Huaxia people. The formula I use is handed down by our ancestors. It is the wealth of every Huaxia person, so it is normal for Huaxia people to buy it at a low price, but you are not qualified. Well said, Dr. Qin. Long live Dr. Qin. Why can't we sell it to them at a high price when they sell it to us at a high price? That's great. Traditional Chinese medicine belongs to our Huaxia people. Dr. Qin, we support you. You'd better raise the price of the medicine sold abroad to 200 times, 300 times. The crowd in the venue was excited. Everyone finally experienced the feeling of holding their heads high. Enrique was too embarrassed to raise his head, so he turned around and left the venue. He had originally come to Huaxia to travel, and happened to attend this press conference. He wanted to say a few words for M Country. In his impression, Huaxia people were very proud and spoke very tactfully. He did not expect to be beaten black and blue by Qin Haodong. At the same time, in the general manager's office of Wilson Jiangnan branch, Huang Weili was being scolded by Davis. Stupid guy, what did you send me? Our laboratory has been studying it for so many days and spent a lot of manpower, material resources, and money, but there is no result. The thing you sent is just water mixed with plant fibers. How can it cure leukemia? You must give me a reasonable explanation today, or you can go home and have a baby." On the huge electronic screen, Davis's spittle was flying everywhere. If he had not been thousands of miles away, he would have spat on Huang Weili's face. Huang Weili was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. He quickly explained, "Mr. Davis, don't be angry. Listen to me. I promise with my head that it must be the blood revival oral liquid, which can cure leukemia completely. What do I want your head for? To kick it as a ball? We are in the pharmaceutical industry. You need evidence to talk to me." Evidence, do you understand? Davis was still very angry. He had indeed invested a lot of money and manpower in the blood revival oral liquid these days. But the final result of the laboratory was that the liquid had no effect. Evidence. Huang Weili's brain was spinning rapidly. He hurriedly said, "I've sent people to follow up and investigate the 100 patients who have taken the white blood oral solution in the past 2 days. They have indeed recovered. No one has taken any more drugs. Some have gone to work, and some often appear in the bathing center. You know that leukemia patients are forbidden to live. They have really been cured. They have found many beautiful girls, and some of them have been arrested by the police. If you need this information, I can send it to you right away." Upon hearing Huang Weili's words, Davis immediately calmed down. He touched his head and said, "Are you sure you're not lying to me?" Huang Weili was about to cry as he said, "Boss, how dare I make such a joke with you? But what you said alone is not enough to convince me. You have to provide other favorable evidence, or you can get out of here." Huang Weili thought for a moment and immediately said, "Mr. Davis, just an hour ago, Lin's group in Qin Haodong held a public press conference. Tangmin Traditional Chinese Medicine Company was officially established and will be put into production soon. There is only one product, which is the blood revival oral liquid. This fully proves that the effect of the blood revival oral liquid is real. Otherwise, Lin's group would never have invested so much money. It will be put into production soon." Davis thought for a moment and asked, "Are you sure that Lin's group has invested? How much?" "Yes. I have asked someone to inquire. Lin's group held a board meeting and passed a resolution to invest in the construction of Tangmin Traditional Chinese Medicine Company. The scale of the investment is about 2.5 billion yuan. 2.5 billion yuan is not a small amount. Lin's group would never invest so much money without sufficient evidence." Huang Weili was now trying to prove the effect of the blood revival oral liquid in order to keep his job. He regretted sending the blood revival oral liquid to the headquarters of Wilson's company. Davis asked again, "Press conference? Could it be a kind of hype by Lin's group?" In contrast, he trusted the data given by his laboratory more. Huang Weili said, "How is that possible? Lin's group was originally in the jewelry industry. Even if they did hype, they would not hype traditional Chinese medicine. According to reliable information, Lin's group's first capital has been in place. They are ready to buy a Chinese medicine company that has been bankrupt for 2 years at the price of 500 million yuan. It is said that the contract will be signed soon." After listening to Huang Weili's words, Davis had already believed that the blood revival oral liquid was real. However, he still asked doubtfully, "If that's the case, why didn't our laboratory come up with any data?" Huang Weili resisted the urge to scold the people in the laboratory. He continued, "Mr. Davis, traditional Chinese medicine is really magical. It may have gone beyond the scope of the laboratory. For example, a few days ago, Qin Haodong cured old Maldini without an operation. This is something that the whole world knows. Until now, science can't explain it." "What you said makes sense." Davis raised his head, looked at Huang Weili and said, "But I remember you said more than once that traditional Chinese medicine is pseudoscience and useless." "Well," Huang Weili said awkwardly, "I did think so at that time. I studied Western medicine since I was in primary school. It's normal to have such an idea. But now it turns out that I was wrong. Traditional Chinese medicine is indeed a very magical subject. Davis did not continue to speak. He paced back and forth in the room with his hands behind his back. After a long time, he turned around and said, "Huang, I'm going to give you a task. Mr. Davis, please tell me. I'll do my best to do it." Huang Weili was delighted. What he was most afraid of now was being laid off. It was definitely a good thing that Davis could give him a task. "Go to Qin Haodong now. No matter how much it costs, you must get his formula. The formula that can cure leukemia must be in the hands of Wilson's company, or we will really go bankrupt." Huang Weili said awkwardly, "This, Mr. Davis, I'm afraid it's very difficult. Qin Haodong has already cooperated with Lin's group, and it will be produced soon." Davis said in a cold voice, "Don't tell me this. You must stop this. If you can't stop it, get out of here. You know many people are waiting for your position." Huang Weili trembled with fear and said quickly, "Don't worry, Mr. Davis. I'll do it well." After the press conference, Qin Haodong returned to the infirmary. Not long after he sat in the chair, the door opened and Huang Weili came in. Qin Haodong glanced at him and said with a smile, "Isn't this Manager Huang? What are you doing here? Did he get sick? Even if you are sick, there's nothing we can do. This is the internal business of the company. It's not public." "Dr. Qin, you must be joking. I'm not here to see a doctor," Huang Weili said embarrassedly. "I'm here to talk about cooperation with you." Qin Haodong said, "Manager Huang, I can't think of anything to cooperate with you." Huang Weili said directly, "Dr. Qin, I won't beat around the bush with you. This time, I'm here on behalf of Wilson's company. I want to talk to you about the development of the blood revival oral liquid." "Cooperation?" Qin Haodong smiled playfully. "It's rare for Wilson's company to give me face, but you're late. I've already cooperated with Lin's group. The product will come out in a few days. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.